The girls at the table discuss their lives. One always has to smile at her mother-in-law, and the other, with her husband's brother who behaves even worse. Their sweet little sister sits with them, still too young to understand the complexity of the world. It's better to be careful when getting married, but it won't do any good. She'll be picked on, no matter what she does. In the presence of your mother-in-law, you should always smile because this way the person will feel better. Elaine smiled as the elders said, but in her head she thought that husbands' mothers were scary. Virgo looks at the golden goose, never having seen anything so extravagant. At home, the animals were different, and Elaine looked after her lover's farm alone. The little girl didn't even think that her clothes were dirty with mud, and now the mud is everywhere. Lifting her hem to avoid staining the carpet, the heroine turns around when someone calls her from behind. In the passageway stands a beautiful woman with blonde hair who assumed that the girl in front of her was the wife of that scoundrel. The most wonderful and dazzling thing that had been seen up to this point was the statue of the goddess in the temple. She can compare the new woman. The girl knows exactly who is standing in front of her because it is her husband's mother, no matter how strange this phrase may sound. In my head, I still have the conviction that Aishen said that he was an orphan and had no one. My thoughts are interrupted by the same lady who is shouting about clothes while not forgetting to order me to get lost. I want to cry, because of course I have no desire to go to a new family of tyrants. I remember that very moment of meeting Aiken. Even though he was poor, he at least said that he didn't have a family that would abuse his wife. The boy turned out to be a liar, and the maid who appeared behind her scared the heroine half to death. Taking the washcloth, I have to refuse the offer to help. The body is quite dirty and smells bad. The lady can't believe that she was thrown out of the hall because of this, but the maid still insistently asks for help. The blonde makes excuses. She is quite clean, but before the meeting she cleaned the geese in the hut. The duty of the assembled maids was to serve the lady, and in a moment the beauty was transformed into a wonderful outfit and image. The brunette admires sincerely. The baby looks as if spring has finally arrived in Coronea's castle. The estate is named after Kinesis, and the view from the window is so great that it's hard to believe that Aiken lived here and hid it all the time. The poor orphan was simply playing on pity, trying to make up for it all with his stupid actions which didn't work. Whatever the reason, the lady is not suitable for this place. The magic spell will surely be the first and last in life. The maid doesn't quite understand what the words about life being remembered mean. The blonde had no idea that her husband lived here. Given the large difference in status, the marriage was most likely invalid. Most likely this is not the case. The heroine will not even have to return home. Kainsis, who has already arrived, enters the door. The little girl still cannot believe how such a person is so beautiful. The woman walks into the main hall and carefully sits down on a chair that a servant pulls out for her. Dinner begins, but the blonde is constantly worried. She has no right to make a mistake in front of her mother-in-law. There is too much delicious food around, placed right in front of her eyes, and inside she feels hunger mixed with common sense. The lady is asked if she likes what she is served, and she thinks about what to answer. She must continue to be careful. The words of the sisters come back to mind again, saying that no matter what a person says, the mother-in-law will still be unhappy. The blonde snorts. It seems that the daughter-in-law does not like anything that was served because she behaves like that. It is always customary to smile at the husband's mother. Even if it is not sincere, you need to follow the rules. Forcing a horrible smile, the little girl says something about how wonderful the food is in this house. There was a heavy atmosphere in the room, and one couldn't miss the fact that the girl looked like a real clown. The food is indeed delicious, but the facial expressions seem to suggest otherwise despite all the problems. All that remains is to ask for forgiveness. My older sisters always said that mother-in-laws need to smile. It was only natural that Kinesis hated Elaine, but she thought she would like him a little more. Mother-in-laws don't always need to smile, so ignore this piece of advice which means nothing. A baby has the right to smile only when she wants to, regardless of those around her. If you force your face to move against your will, you will get even more wrinkles with age. To lighten the topic a little, the blonde asks if her interlocutor likes custard cream puffs. Since Kinesis doesn't have any daughters, she doesn't know what kind of food the girls prefer, so she asks them to cook different things. Elaine looks at the cake, agreeing that it looks wonderful. Without allowing him to take a bite, Coronea suggests that they stop because they need to get rid of something first. The little girl hoped that such a wonderful man would accept her into his family, but it seems that this was not true. The time spent in the house was good. I managed to try on nice clothes and meet Madame. The woman orders to throw away things that do not suit the beauty and call the Mantel boutique. Everything must be perfect, so the servants run away almost immediately. Kinesis asks why her friend is not eating. The blonde was genuinely scared and thought that her mother-in-law had ordered her to leave the estate. Coronea must live in the palace with the same name, so the heroine will not go anywhere else and will be nearby. It's hard to believe what you see, but the woman's eyes look too warm and special. The girl blushes and says how she likes everything. Madame's eyes are like two wonderful diamonds. If we are talking about custard, then it can be served at every dinner so as not to deny anyone anything. What I actually liked was how Elaine was called by her husband's last name when she was accepted into the family. At first, the lady looked very weak, so the servants were worried that she would not survive in the palace of Coronet, but it seems that she will bring only happiness to herself and this family. The Sherry's Mountains, located along the northern border of the Tanya Empire, are always covered in snow. The cold weather makes it a most desirable place to travel in the summer. At that time, no one was eager to go there because of the endless blizzard that was raging. In addition to other problems, monsters are constantly appearing in that area. In the past, these animals left the mountains, terrifying the imperial family and subjects. One day, the witch went on a quest and destroyed all the evil spirits with one wave of her hand. Thus, the Tanya Empire could once again live in peace and hope for a happy ending. An unknown wizard with powerful magic gave up his status and money and asked for the lands of the Shazrias Mountains in exchange. No one wanted to live there, but the woman built a huge palace. Coronea was not only magnificent, but also impregnable. The little girl claps her hands. She is incredibly touched by the story of how Madame built this monastery and was able to do the best. Subject Kinesis tells of a girl who turns out to be 16 and married Kehendel about 3 months ago. The man is definitely nice, so one can assume that this is why the witch's son was in a hurry to get married. The reckless scoundrel dared to kidnap this little child, thereby most likely finally ruining her life. In the Soren kingdom, where the baby is from, girls usually get married as soon as they turn 16. In spite of everything, the blonde is too young. She could find more fun things to do instead of getting married. Changing the subject, Kinesis asks about his son. The servant barely managed to find him, but it did not bear fruit. There is no need to search any further because the guy will arrive himself. It is worth preparing the newlyweds' room. The woman objects once again. They shouldn't do this first. They need to find out why the lady is so fragile. A famous designer named Mantel has already arrived at the castle. She is just as luxurious. The blonde greets the lady, but in fact Icon was expected since they were talking about that man. First, the gaze turns to the dresses. The girl apologized in advance for her lack of samples. The woman was in such a hurry that she was unable to prepare much, but it seems that there are more than 200 samples. The miss noticed that all the outfits looked luxurious. The girl clearly had a keen eye since she said so. The girl still thinks that none of what was offered will suit her and that she can choose something else. Mantel thought that Kinesis was the one who called, "Not this confused child," she asks, "What style is preferred?" A persistent person like this is just the type that is needed. The woman shows other, more beautiful models. The blonde is sure that she has already said that nothing shown suits her style. Smiling, the heroine corrects herself. Mrs. She should be addressed differently since she is already married. Elaine Coronea wishes for everything to be as originally intended, causing the lady to bow her head in fear and respect. Mantel is almost in tears because she almost spoke out against bad behavior. Eichen's son managed to get married. The little girl turns to ballet for now. That's all she's chosen, so that's all she'll need. The beauty doesn't even want to see any other options, so she orders the bill to be presented. It seems like enough, but Madame will probably say that it is not so. Elaine still thinks that she has nowhere to even go. Mantel bows his head respectfully, promising that they will see each other again when the order is finally completely ready. The lady turns to the man, asking if this is called payment for the daughter-in-law's outfits. The amount is too small. Jackton completely agrees with Madame, but the little one said that buying unnecessary junk would clearly be unnecessary. Because of anger, tongues of flame appear all around. It's hard to believe that some designer brought unnecessary rags. The guy steps back to avoid being caught in another wave of anger that is haunting him. The child asked for help. She can't just sit and spend the money that Kinesis earns from fighting monsters. The mother-in-law does not believe what she heard. Usually, everything should be a little different and much better. The lady is most likely a vile shrew, and Jackton again wants to agree, but is warned of the consequences of insulting his daughter-in-law. In any case, the beauty should be brought to Madame's office after afternoon tea. She is going to talk about the check. Sitting down on the sofa after moving to the reception area, the blonde begins to ask questions. Looking down sadly, the daughter-in-law realizes that she is not good enough in the role she plays. The lady never said anything against it. I have no idea why the words sound so offensive. There is no point in arguing because at this moment there is real chaos in my head with memories of my mother and her humiliation. As it turns out, Elaine is the daughter of the former Viscount Arathea of the Sorin Kingdom. They were of noble birth, but not at all rich. The girl is known in her neighborhood as the one who was scolded by her mother for almost her entire childhood. The family needed a son to maintain their noble title, but once a girl was born it was confiscated. Even though Kinesis' daughter-in-law was a victim of malice, she always remained a cheerful girl, so she was loved in the village. The heroine talks about her weak mother, but mid-sentence she is asked to shut up. Although Coronea doesn't know what life was like before she is now a member of a new family, and from now on she must show all her spirit. The promise to try is the most important thing. If a child wants it, he can do what he thinks is right. Kinesis will be away often for work, and unfortunately she almost never knows where her useless son is. As the mistress of the house, Elaine must look after the castle, and she will definitely put her heart and soul into this matter. As a new member of the family, the Virgo is obliged to receive appreciation and live up to her status. The heroine has never seen such a check since she worked with Mantel. More outfits need to be picked out. Now, as the mistress of the house, the girl is obliged to try to make herself better in order to show everyone around her what she is worth. The girl asks to visit a few more boutiques. The designer's dresses are beautiful, but they don't suit her style. Nodding, the child also asks to get an education. She is ashamed that, compared to her mother-in-law, she is so ignorant. Jackton heard everything, so after selecting the personnel and materials, we can start immediately. The blonde asks to call Father Morgan to conduct a medical examination. Compared to others, the new arrival has growth retardation, so it is necessary to do the right thing. The madam smiles. She definitely likes her daughter-in-law. The servant looked at the mistress, hoping that her mana had not deteriorated after the mission at night. The lady was getting ready to go to bed. Belletti brought a glass of warm milk. There was a bottle of black medicine in the luggage. The girl only just remembered about it. This drug has to be taken since childhood. Most likely these are vitamins to drink with milk. There is hope in the head that in the future the lady will grow up and become the same as the mistress. Since development is still ongoing, most likely anything is possible. The baby hopes to become just as tall. If the girl sleeps well and eats properly, everything will be quite possible and there will be no problems. Elaine closes her eyes going into the kingdom of Morpheus. Her last thoughts are again about the lady. She has never smiled like that. The sisters force the little girl to smile in front of her mother-in-law, but when they see each other again, the beauty will say that she cannot stop doing this only by her own will. Aiken never told the truth, but then even more questions arose. He should not have escaped from such a wonderful place. The very next day, something happened that the heroine could not have expected on her own. A few hours before this, the girl went to the office of the lady she was going to see. The blonde got up much earlier to make sure that she was the first to greet her. The door also turned out to be luxurious, like the entire castle. It felt as if this detail, like the owner herself, was elegant. When Elaine first spoke to the butler, it turned out that the witch did not have a husband. I had to ask if he was dead or if something had happened, but only Madame and Lord knew the answer to that question. All this time, Aiken and his mother were the only close people left. Aratea enters the room from the threshold asking how her mother-in-law slept last night. The woman does not like to exchange pleasantries at such an early hour. She should never come in the morning again. From this moment on, the maiden does not dare to wake up before 10 a.m. Considering how little the child sleeps, it is not surprising that she is so tiny. If breakfast doesn't work out, the best solution is to have dinner together and enjoy the company. Mr. Secretary also arrived to meet the new resident of the house. He was a little late. Jackton was seeing the lady off, so he couldn't arrive on time. He didn't have to wait long, so everything is fine. As it turned out, the girl really was going to have dinner with Madame today and thought that everything would be quite normal. The blonde had work in the morning, so they moved it to the evening. The man should have guessed it himself because the lady was smiling. Jackton works the most with the sorceress, so she must be busy. Kinesis has a fiery character. Since the sorceress is a terrible perfectionist, in addition to all the problems, even more tasks are added. Helping someone so impressive is indeed a big responsibility, but an important one. This is another reason why a lady needs such a wonderful secretary who should take care of her. The young man wanted to take the chance to voice all his complaints, but now he can't. For some reason, he has a bad feeling inside. Outside, you can hear some noise that is perhaps too loud from which you want to hide. Trying to calm the lady down, the man suggests that the palace gates had collapsed or that it was the fence. Thanks to the protective spell, no one will be able to pass through the barrier, so there is no need to worry. The monsters won't attack, but breaking down the doors is a habit, something that hasn't happened for a long time. A familiar voice is heard from behind a blonde man surrounded by magic, asks what Elaine is doing here. Icon certainly sounds like his usual self, but he looks completely different from before. That day, the mother said that she was selling her daughter as a wife to a merchant who was known to be a bad man. The little girl knew that she was ready to do anything to help her family, but everything turned out much worse than it should have been. As the girl cried helplessly at her father's grave, her friend offered her his hand and heart. The mother was not happy that her daughter brought another man to avoid marrying Jitian. If a lady came to talk nonsense about love and everything else, she should leave immediately because there will be no joy. The man promised enough money for the Viscountess to take care of her old age, but then all plans collapse. The blonde cries and runs away, not believing that her mother really doesn't care. Cahendel caught up with his future wife and promised that everything would be fine. He had resolved the issues with the lady, and they could leave. Marrying my friend was the first independent decision I made in my entire life. On the way to the hut, for some reason, the man started asking about the geese. Apparently, it was important. When they get married, they will raise geese on the farm, and since there is no choice, the girl agrees. The lady promised herself that she would try her best to live a diligent life with her family no matter what happened. This man standing by the window doesn't look like that husband at all. He even looks a little irritated. The blonde has the same question because the young man introduced himself as an orphan, and then, as it turned out, lied. Cahendel is obliged to answer, but instead he asks to be called by his terrible name. Icon, as it turns out, hates the way Madame called him, so she tries to avoid it in every possible way. Jackton also got into trouble and was forced to leave as quickly as possible. They don't live here, and so the hero asks to return home. The girl, perhaps for the first time, shows her character. The guy had reasons to lie, but there is no excuse. His mother is a witch, and he himself is one. The hair changed color, the glasses disappeared. Everything was jam, even about the humble goosefeather merchant. Realizing that a mistake was made, and that it was worse than it should have been, the hero sincerely asks for forgiveness, while carefully hugging the beauty. I was sick of being a wizard, and that was the reason why such a pathetic girl was picked up. Elaine tried to convince herself that her husband had reasons for lying, but most likely he married simply out of pity. Now that the lady saw a new man in front of her whom she doesn't know, she is angry. The question about his wife on the side made Coronea freeze in place and start waving his hands furiously. If this is not true, he can always let you know when he finds a more suitable noble option. After everything that happened, the lady does not intend to live together. She will definitely file for divorce. The girl is actually a little scary. She wasn't teased or deceived on purpose, but that's how it all turned out. The scene that just happened made the guy feel happy. The heroine had never screamed like that before. It's a pity she didn't attack her crazy mother in the same way. In my thoughts, I only have my wife who now seems nice, but now it's more important to figure out how to get her out of the castle. Cahendel intended to run as far as he could, but who would have thought that things would turn out this way? A man arrived for dinner who it seems should have already left. He smiles. Of course, his intentions are pure. Just a few days ago, the lady and her husband were eating thin soup for a snack. It is impossible to believe that this is the same person. The blonde must have hidden his appearance with a spell, which is why he looked so different. The young man was afraid that the lady would leave without having dinner, but now all that was left was to thank her. She decided to join after all. The head chef of the palace is the best, and his food is so wonderful that it is simply impossible to refuse. Surely, judging by the movements, one can decide that the baby is behaving inappropriately. She is now Coronea, so she has the right to everything that is in this estate. At the moment, I had enough courage, but now I want to cry, and everyone around me will probably think that I have a terrible character. In fact, all the servants adore the little mistress. The cook has never heard his dishes praised so much. After this, the man ran away to look for a new serve that the girl would like. The maid is on Elaine's side because she always greets her with a smile that lights up the room. It's perfectly normal for married people to hit their husbands from time to time, but this time Jackton is sure it was an accident. All those gathered are confident that Madame Kinesis will also take her daughter-in-law's side. The man noticed that he was late because, judging by the expressions on everyone's faces, everyone had been rooting for their new mistress for a long time. Since they suffered in the cold castle of Coronea, it is not surprising that they became so attached to the sunshine of Elaine. It's a pity about the servants, but leaving his wife alone in this place is not worth it. The young man asks to visit his room after dinner. The house they lived in after their wedding was a simple shack with one room and a kitchen. There was only one bed in the bedroom, but they were not going to sleep together. Only the wife would sleep on the bed. Aiken promised that he wouldn't ask her to do adult things if she wasn't ready. All the man asked was to look after the geese, as he was often away from home due to work. The blonde promised that she would do everything, but now she hopes that they are okay. Baletti, who entered the bathroom, brought a robe and asked if it was worth getting ready for the night with the Lord. If you need medicine or anything else, the maid promises to bring everything, but nothing is needed. As it turned out, menstruation had not even started yet. The girl was really lagging behind. Perhaps everything would start later. The priest was unexpectedly called to the castle of Coronea, and he prepared himself so that he would know where to begin. The madam asks to conduct a medical examination of her daughter-in-law, but the strange thing is when she managed to get her, it seems that all this means that Cahendel managed to get married, and it was not even known. The girl knows that she is only in the room because of her marriage, but this is her first time here. The chambers are completely different from those of Aiken's mother. He asks to sit closer on the sofa. The blonde doesn't miss the opportunity to complain about rudeness. It's clear that she has her own responsibilities, but all this is too unexpected. They are here only to talk in a private place without any servants or anyone who might disturb them. The man did not call her to fulfill his marital duty. What a relief it was for the girl who was only hoping for the best. For some reason, the lady is disappointed, but tries to push the thoughts aside no matter what. Her husband is clearly handsome. It was already reported in advance that the girl met with the witch of the ice palace, meaning her mother-in-law. While all this is being said, the hero's face changes to reflect the expressions he has decided to use. The heroine does not know about the relationships in this family, but she believes that Coronea is a good person. Thanks to Madam, the little girl finally got a good night's sleep and ate some delicious food. Everyone who works in the palace is nice and kind. All this happens only because the girl is Aichen's wife, and she is even grateful for this. Even if she was not married for love, it doesn't mean anything. A man is obliged to do everything that is required of him to preserve this marriage for the remaining 3 required years. In other words, we will have to separate in 3 years. Unfortunately, nothing can be fixed. It's all a bit confusing, even too confusing in places. It's better to consider it a curse, even if the details are not yet revealed. The little girl doesn't understand what this is all about. In any case, she was taken as a wife only to help and nothing more. If it weren't for Aiken, Elaine would have been married off to worthless old Gideon to lead a worthless life. Now, since everything is fine, the guy has the right to marry someone he loves after these 3 years. In the end, there is nothing to say. The boy had long ago decided that getting married and living with this man would be a good decision. After the wedding, the couple seemed to live well. After the term ended, they would still help the blonde. Of course, the gratitude for help will be lifelong, but it is not clear why exactly 3 years was chosen. Cahendel understands the lady's confusion and feelings, as he would certainly feel the same. Explanations will be provided once the couple gets out. They will definitely move to a more comfortable place than the shack. At the moment of the answer, a noise was heard in the street, and the dark sky was illuminated by flashes of beautiful lights. The skies continue to sparkle. Elaine better follow the street to find out everything. Down below, right in the middle of the lot, there is a lady screaming at her son to get out of her house. An hour ago, that very countdown to the last second began. The lady opened the door and saw an empty dining room there. The lord and lady had already finished their dinner, for it seemed the witch had not hurried fast enough. Jackton talks about the gate, but is interrupted. The lady is obliged to see the girl's face before she goes to bed. The baby is in her husband's room if that's the case. They'll go to their quarters. Before the altercation broke out, Baladi decided to talk to the lady about the new occupant of the house. Although it is normal for a couple to share a bedroom, the blonde was not menstruating. When the Lord called the beauty into the room, everything became clear. The witch did not think that they had already managed to sleep together. The girl is so small and fragile that I want her to live only in comfort and joy. It's hard to believe that the man had fun as soon as he returned, spitting from a high bell tower on all the rules. When sending Jackton away, the lady orders them to bring all the magical fireworks they have. Cahendel is angry, and his grip is causing cracks in the railing. He doesn't understand what his mother is carrying and why she is behaving this way. Trying to stop her husband's anger, the maiden promises that if he does as she asks, he will leave Coronea. It would be worth leaving, but first comes the heroine's request. The first thing to do is to stop breaking things in the palace. The heroine intends to protect this place as long as she is the young man's wife, so she will not allow money to be wasted. This witch has a lot more money than she looks, but that doesn't mean anything. A man treats his mother badly, so he has no right to spend her money carelessly. Secondly, the couple will stay in the estate for 6 months to establish relations with the lady. He doesn't understand why he would do this, but he can also ask the lady herself, since she was lied to without a twinge of conscience. The boy's mother showed her daughter-in-law kindness and warmth that she never got from her own parents. Nothing came of the girl's relationship with her mother, but she wants to improve it with her mother-in-law. If 2 requests are fulfilled, the beauty will go live with her husband and live together in just 6 months. The blonde is obliged to play along with the ridiculous plan, but she is ready even for this. The sorceress is irritated that because of her mana, she can hear every word more clearly. Jackton is once again ordered to find out information about Elaine's family, and even more than last time. I would like the former Viscountess to know what family she sold her daughter to. Balletti led the baby into the room. She was worried. Now she is only happy that everything is okay. The day was eventful until the very end, because everything ended in another squabble anyway. After the husband dismissed his wife, she went down to Madame to say that the fireworks were wonderful. The lady is probably tired, so she should sleep until the morning and then get up for breakfast. Aiken said he would think about the offer. It's good that he didn't refuse. For some reason, there is a feeling that the young man will agree to what he was asked to do. Even if the two hate each other more than anything, the boy still looks like his mother. They look cold and rude on the outside. A woman always behaves exactly like that. The husband is also not the best at showing emotions inside. They are both caring and gentle. Cahendel also inherited his hot temperament from his mother, so we will definitely have to compare here. No matter Coronea's wealth or reputation, the lady wishes to live with her sweet madam and friend for at least 6 months. I would like the two to treat each other as well as they treat the guest. There is not enough strength, but it will be possible to create a few warm memories. The paths will diverge, but there is still time. The hero sits in complete silence in a dark room. He thinks over the conditions but does not understand what they are based on. This kind of involvement in the situation was not planned, so now it is not clear what will have to be done about it. The county of Kemahel was located in the most remote corner of the Sorin Kingdom news, and rumors rarely reached these lands. It was precisely this place that he had to choose in order to live his inconspicuous life as a merchant. Elaine was the 4th daughter of the poor house of Arathea, and her mother constantly scolded her for not being a boy. Even though the woman was tormenting her daughter, she was constantly glowing with happiness. Even Aiken was shocked when he saw the baby crying. The blonde looked no more than 13, but they were still going to sell her so that she could marry a merchant who was famous for his nasty character. For some reason, what was happening made me think and want to help her. The young man thought that it would be better for her to marry him than some old man, and he brought a bag of gold. The woman did not know where the merchant got such money, but she accepted every coin. I wanted to hide the girl from her mother, who saw her only as a way to make money. Elaine should have felt better marriage, and gaining her own freedom should have done her good. As a result, the hero was also able to accomplish what he needed to do himself. The guy thought that everything would be fine, but something changed, making it completely unnoticeable. When the lady wakes up, she goes out onto the balcony. No matter how long she looks, the view will always remain wonderful. There are a lot of colorful flowers in the garden. I have never seen so many tulips before. The witch is unable to grow plants, so Aiken must understand that his mother is a good person. Madame also went down for a walk and decided to ask her guest what she was doing outside at such an early hour. The blonde immediately smiles, giving a compliment and receiving the same in return. The beauty had never heard anyone say before that she was more beautiful than the tulips themselves. Since the two are awake, they can go for a walk to clear their heads a bit. Almost immediately, the witch asks for forgiveness. She heard yesterday's conversation between her son and daughter-in-law. The woman did not want to eavesdrop, but alas, it turned out that way. She has sensitive hearing due to the excess of mana contained in her body. It was also reported that Kehendall is planning to divorce his wife in just 3 years, which is simply unacceptable given the circumstances. The man had always been a mystery to his mother because it was never clear what was going on inside his stupid head. After the words, the boy's room suddenly became cold. No matter what the hero said, the lady is not obliged to leave the castle whether now or in 3 years or in a few months. The lady can get a divorce whenever she wants. Madame doesn't want to hear anything, because Elaine is still too young for all these ideas. The girl actually has great potential that needs to be gradually revealed. The woman understands that sooner or later, the paths of her son and Aratea will diverge, and there is no way to influence this no matter how much she would like to. She as a guardian will help the girl after the divorce. It seems that all this is said only because the lady does not like the girl and because she does not want to show it. The most important thing is to make sure it is true. What the lady said is perhaps nonsense. The lady says all this because she does not want to see Elaine waste her precious life on such a scoundrel as Aishin. The blonde presses herself to her hand, expressing her feelings. She wants to live with her mother-in-law who loves her and asks to be allowed to be her daughter-in-law for the next 3 years as promised. All the witch meant was that she wanted to look after the lady even after the divorce no matter what, and she wasn't going to leave her completely alone. Having listened to everything that is necessary without interrupting the sorceress, the heroine suddenly expresses her desire to go on a date between mother and daughter, which they can arrange at any convenient time. The beauty heard that the capital of the empire, Tanya, is amazing, and of course the little girl can't wait to see all sorts of interesting things. Taking a walk with her mother-in-law would be the best idea. Lately, the lady has been very busy with her duties as a great sorceress, so accordingly there is no time left for anything else. In fact, it would be difficult to schedule a meeting in the next month, but if the beauty wants it that way, then time will be freed up for her next week. After hearing this, the little girl blossomed even more. Although it would seem that this could be possible, the child runs away screaming about a date, which again testifies to her joy. Kehendall must be out of his mind to decide to divorce such a cutie after 3 years and not want to keep her by his side. There is nothing to say about his behavior. The lady knew that the peace would not last too long. In front of her were the dismantled gates, or rather, what was left of them. It was clear that the man would cause a pogrom when he returned to the castle. Seeing how skillfully the boy destroyed the magic formation and the palace gate, Jekton thought that the master's mana had become even greater. This should only be looked at from the positive side. The wizards have their work cut out for them, and of course the witch appreciates this optimism. But now she is paying too high a price for failing to raise her son as he should be. Those gathered stand behind as ordered and move even further away as soon as they see the white magic growing. They are surprised that kinesis restored the magic formation in an instant. The woman apologizes for the inconvenience caused by her son and sends everyone off to rest, and the wizards unanimously try to thank her for fixing the problem. The main one is sick, that the lady can only be angered by the fact that they did not finish repairing the gate, but she did it for the others and even cheered them up. It seems that she is in such a good mood because her son returned. The guy can't be loved so much after all the years of a tense relationship. The reason for the kindness is the young lady, not the lord. Many still didn't know that Kehendall got married. It was already noticeable that Madame had changed a lot since this little girl had appeared this time. She had only fixed the gate, but who knows what will happen next time. Everyone is interested in finding out what the young lady is like, and it will be necessary to find a way to meet at least once. The woman walked back into her office and as soon as she stepped through the door, ordered Jekton to clear a day off his schedule for the following week. As it turns out, he and Elaine had a family date planned. The two were going to visit Design Street, so it was best to prepare everything properly. The man doesn't want to interfere or spoil the mood, but he simply has to ask if the lady is sure perhaps Aratea suggested all this because she needs to please her frightening mother-in-law. The schedule is full and squeezing a free day in there is most likely not possible, but the lady is unlikely to be satisfied with such an answer. She wants to hear something more important, but with each passing day it seems he is talking more and more nonsense. Because the lady had become furious again, the secretary almost flew out the door. He asks to warn, because it is only because of his unusualness that he is still alive. In addition to what has already been assigned, the mother-in-law asks for a survey to be conducted on a few things to consider when the couple goes on a date with a sample size of over 1,000 samples. The beauty is resting on the sofa and trying to fall asleep again. Forcing herself to get up, she looks tired, but she is not going to sleep even after her husband's words. Now Aiken is going to go to that very shack, as he needs to check on the geese as soon as he returns. Of course, they can discuss everything calmly without getting involved in problems. Already sinking onto the soft pillows, the little girl mumbled something about saying hello to the geese. She was awakened by the maid because the room was already ready. It's hard to believe that all this is true. Nothing strange has happened up to this point, but such repairs for good purposes are perhaps the first and most interesting. Madame personally prepared every detail and made sure that everything was done in the best possible way. The room will be decorated with soft pink noble gold and snow-white flowers. Entering inside, the baby freezes with her mouth open and of course does not miss the moment to compliment all this beauty. She has never seen anything like it before. Ballet stands to the side and smiles. The reaction seems cute to her, and usually everything is done only to please the one who will receive that very gift. As she walked further, the maid pointed towards the various cabinets which contained more books than a lady could possibly read in a lifetime, and Kinesis paid special attention to this place. The woman asked to create a space where she could study as much as her heart desired, and be allowed to use it freely, and the gift from her mother-in-law was truly impressive. The servants did everything that the mistress asked, but they also made every effort because they wanted to see a smile on Arate's face. Everyone who works for Madame has gathered in the hallway, and they all came for one reason. Only the realization adds to the pain. She and Condell are not even married, but the family has already done too much. Deciding to pull herself together, the Viscountess bows her head and gives thanks. Every day spent in this place will be happy, thanks to the people who took care of it. The man standing with the rest of the wizards can't help but fall in love with such charm. It's impossible to believe that someone so wonderful lives in the palace. Jackton arrived at the gentleman's office again on call. This time she asks if he has found out everything about the survey. The man puts a huge stack of paper on the table. Although the servant did exactly as he was told, conducting the survey was quite a task. There were so many extreme stories about terrible mothers-in-law and just as many complaints from their daughters-in-law. Nodding, the blonde decides it would be best to change the subject, asking how the little guest is doing and taking another sip of her drink. The lady liked the room very much. It was evident even from her look and gratitude. She spent most of her day in the office, to which the lady paid special attention. Elaine is funny because she could look around the entire room. Jackton ignores the joy, not understanding why all this could not be asked directly to the girl. It feels like the work is happening with a small child in love and not a witch. On the very first page, it is written that going somewhere with your mother-in-law is the most terrible thing. The lady's mood evaporates, and along with it her secretary, who asks for forgiveness and runs out of the office. Only a few days have passed, but finally the very moment that the little lady has been waiting for so much has arrived. She cannot help but say that she is incredibly happy. The beauty noticed that lately the lady had been coming home quite late. However, apparently today she was not very busy, as she had already gotten ready. Kinesis is the only great wizard in Tanya, so she has so many responsibilities that she has to fulfill. Unfortunately, if she gets overtired, she can even get sick. In the maid's memory, this is the first person who is so worried about Madame because she is such a formidable and straightforward person. No one thought about the difficulties she is going through. The woman is indeed very strong, so she can stand up for herself, but despite this, the beauty still continues to worry no less than before, because she should have been lonely and sad. Ballet smiles again as she listens to everything that is being said. Elaine looks innocent, but at the same time she is so sincere that it is even breathtaking in a way. This day really seems wonderful, and in order to go somewhere with her daughter-in-law, it is even better Madame goes to the window to look at her possessions. The moment is ruined by a servant who runs into the room to say that they have a problem. An unknown intruder has broken into the princess's estate. The blonde is already starting to get angry because she doesn't believe that something like this could happen at all. She created a magical barrier as her wedding gift so no one can get through there. Jackton is already afraid to answer anything, but everyone says that the magical barrier was eventually simply destroyed, anger still accumulated, because Elaine had already promised to go on a date. Unfortunately, there was no choice left. Usually when something happens, you can somehow get out of it, but this time you will have to go on your own to sort out all the problems. With the help of magic, the woman summons her robe, which, like the dress, is a color especially suitable for the evening. She asks to convey her apologies to the girl who will surely understand everything. While the witch is visiting the princess's palace, the secretary can show the matchmaker the designer street of Tarsia. Of course, it is better to drag out time while the woman tries to arrive earlier. The girl is in the reception room and is looking at something. When she first saw the golden goose in the palace, she was in complete shock because she had never seen anything like it before. This bird looks more like Madame Kinesis, but it was difficult to say why exactly. Now the statue seems to look into the very soul, making one a little embarrassed. Since the animal has golden hair and dark blue eyes, it would be easier to say that all this looks more like a husband than a mother-in-law. In any case, now is not the time to think about such things. Turning to the maid, the little girl asks why there is something like this in such an important place. When the beauty examined the office, she did not find a single legend or myth about geese in the Tanya Empire. Belletti is not sure. Since the statue was in the castle before she got the job, the young lady still does not understand. When she got married, her husband asked her to watch for similar birds, and most likely it means something. The sapphire eyes also remind me of Icon, which makes me feel strange. The little girl, now in the company of an interested maid, behaves as if this is the most important dilemma in her life. Jackton, who overheard half of the conversation, enters the room. Although they certainly look similar, it does not mean that the goose is much nicer than the lord that the heroine herself chose. Since the secretary most likely knows everything in the world, he is asked the same question, but the answer remains ordinary, unremarkable in general. The man has arrived to convey an important message. The hostess was in the midst of preparing for the upcoming date when something urgent happened in the royal palace. Looking upset, the child asks what will happen to their meeting. Today it is the servant who will become a reliable assistant in the purchases that will be made, and will introduce the beauty to the street of designers where boutiques can drag on for the whole day. While the blonde will be researching and shopping, the mistress will finish her work and return just in time for lunch. In fact, this option seems quite good. Still, the mood has not spoiled completely. The beauty suggests moving on, and then goes outside. After some time, the two find themselves in that very place. The streets are as magnificent as the royal palace, and it is now clear why this place is called the Pearl of Tanya. All the presented premiums are works of art created by experienced craftsmen. Perhaps something has already caught your eye. Designer bags and clothes are all around, and these are the top gifts that daughters-in-law want to receive from their mothers-in-law. Madame ordered to buy everything that the girl wants. Everyone who is in other people's houses wants to receive only the best things, because they already have to put up with bad treatment. Things act as a symbol of discomfort in being around. In this case, everything is a little different. The baby feels great. The lady still treats her well, but just wants to buy the best. A smile appears on the blue-eyed girl's face almost instantly. The heroine knew that she liked him very much, since even her secretary was convinced of the same thing. Now, since love is actually felt, it becomes even easier to breathe. The heroine goes into the first store where she wants to look at scarves first. The consultant looks at the people who entered. The girl looks like a country bumpkin who has never been to such places before, and this man looks like a stupid uncle. Probably these two will not be valuable clients. Coronea points to a light blue scarf that caught her eye almost immediately. Most of the options on offer cost 1 gold coin. Garcia's products are works of art into which the craftsmen put their soul. That is why the minimum price is so high. Obviously, it is expensive for a girl. It is better to look elsewhere. After the words about money, the lady's expression changed almost immediately. Everything, even the cheapest one, contains a piece of the creator's soul, but the person selling it has neither soul nor manners. The seller didn't like this behavior, so he started shouting. The owner of the boutique came out to hear the noise and didn't understand what was going on. The gaze immediately stops on the man who is the secretary of the Coronea family, and the lady next to him is wearing a dress from the new Mantel collection, which is really expensive. All this means that the place was visited by the family of the great sorceress. The brunette asks for forgiveness and lowers the consultant's face down. He is new here, so he was rude not knowing who he was standing in front of. Keeping the same stony expression, the blonde asks Jacton if their family often deals with this store. Madame often buys hats and umbrellas here almost every season. Whenever a new product appears, the woman also buys bags, pointing her finger at that very beautiful scarf the lady asks to wrap it. In addition to the purchase, the heroine asks the servant to stop all transactions because she has no desire to deal with a store that treats its customers arrogantly. As the duo leaves the boutique, a quiet conversation takes place behind the counter as the salesperson still cannot understand why the owner is behaving this way. For some reason now, the blue-eyed girl feels like she was too cruel to others. She knows that Coronea's family is wealthy, and you can spend as much as you want, but it's better to do it right. In fact, the action turned out to be correct. The house had problems with this store before, but the lady did not bother to get rid of them, so on the contrary, they helped her. While the lady is choosing her dessert in the cafe, Jacton promises that if he is given a little time, he will definitely return with good news after he has sorted everything out. The servant leaves, and Aratea again examines the beautiful box along with the handkerchief that is inside. If you think about it, Aiken never gave a wedding gift. The blonde remembers well how she spent all the money to buy a beautiful leather belt for her trousers, but in return, unfortunately, she did not even receive a flower ring. It seems that the little girl is not charming enough because she is short and weak. If she looked like her peers, perhaps something would have worked out. The husband does not pay any attention, continuing to behave even worse than before. One cannot even take into account the fact that all this time lies covered his personality. A blonde man appeared behind her and called Elaine. The young man smiles, asking how a man could leave his young wife all alone as if she were useless. Of course, the character apologizes for accidentally scaring the lady, but she looked like she was sad about something related to her husband. In fact, everything is great. And it didn't even take long to convince, which already seems like a good start. The hero is happy because he wouldn't want anything to cause pain. Caring is always important, even when you meet a person perhaps for the first time in your life. But even if there were problems, it is not so important. Now all this can be solved. A lady's husband is not her whole life. If he finds another woman as love, he will be let go to live happily alone. It will not be a problem. It is impossible to even believe what you heard because it is all painfully surreal. It seems like a lie, but in any case, the lady is worthy of admiration, not wanting to seem rude. The hero asks to ask a question. The accent that can be heard in the girl's words only shows that she came from the West, which turned out to be true. The book in the man's hands shows that he obviously took an intensive course in linguistics. Currently, the new acquaintance is a professor at Tanya Academy, a bad habit that the guy picked up due to the specifics of his job. Of course, not the best. He asks for forgiveness if he crossed the line. The little girl nods, assuring that nothing terrible happened. In fact, she is sincerely delighted by the fact that at such a young age, she has already managed to become a real professor. This is worthy of praise. Bowing his head, the interlocutor seems to be about to leave. He enjoyed chatting, but that's all for now. The beauty also says goodbye, hoping that they will be able to see each other again one day. The gentleman is already walking away down the road. He is incredibly pleasant, both in appearance and, more importantly, in behavior. He seems to be the opposite of Aiken, who does not behave like that. Aiken is not behaving quite appropriately, and one can say that at the same time he is glowing, because he is somewhat similar to the sun. The man whom the heroine just met, the complete opposite, is similar to the moon. While the beauty was waving goodbye, a blonde guy appeared behind her and scared her half to death by asking if she had already started cheating. It was a rather tense way of greeting, but at the same time it still played its role. When Kahendel returned to the palace, he was informed that his wife had gone for a walk with the vile witch, so without wasting a second, the hero set out to search, worried that she had already turned into a handful of ashes. It seems that the woman was having fun with another man, at that moment not thinking about her husband, and doing her own thing. The words spoken were received with hostility, so turning away, Elaine sits down on a chair in the same cafe. The guy has no right to say such a thing. Even after they got married, this man, without thinking, left the girl at home for several days without letting her know where he was going. Not only lying about leaving for work, the blonde also ran away from the Corinthian palace. The young man believes that there was a stupid misunderstanding that actually meant nothing. He left because he thought that the lady would be uncomfortable living with an older man, who, although he was her husband, remained the same. Now everything is clear because he had to leave the house only for the sake of his woman. Before, the little girl did not even think in such a way, so now she does not even know what to answer to this. Anyway, there's something more important now. Aiken's mom isn't a witch, and the guy the heroine was talking to was a linguist. It was just about the accent the girl has. Even if the couple is going to separate after 3 years as stated in the contract, the lady promises to make every effort not to create unnecessary rumors. There will be no affairs on the side until the end of the term. Of course, the young man is in the same situation. He is not interested in ruining his life even more. Even if the interlocutor agreed, the little girl is ready to beg him to make her wish come true. She needs this life for 6 months in the palace. The girl can now do whatever she wants, and there won't even be any problem with it, which will improve everything as a whole. Since Coronea is big and has a lot of rooms, they will both be 100% comfortable. After that very topic that had been tormenting the heroine for several days, she noticeably cheered up and therefore began to rummage in her pocket to get a box with a handkerchief inside. It seems that the box contains a thing that is usually given to girls, but again the blonde does not see any problem. The scarf is the same color as her eyes, so it is better to keep it with you as a sign that the man has a wife. The hero nods. Thanking for the gift, he doesn't think that now is the best time for bickering, so he doesn't start behaving inappropriately. He must definitely give Elaine something in return, because even in the past, the beauty had already given him a belt. Aiken had never received gifts before, even though he sometimes wanted them. People around him opened numerous boxes on every holiday, but he had never had anything like that, not even from his own mother. The hero takes the box and begins to examine it. He is so deeply immersed in his thoughts that he does not immediately hear his wife calling him. She has to touch his shoulder to finally get through. The woman asks to leave the cafe because now is the time for a date between her daughter and mother-in-law. It is a little offensive that the lady prefers the witch to her own husband, but nothing can be said. There is simply no point in it. Lord Eltalark of the Lasteran house is greeted from the doorway and smiled at the man. Hasn't been like this for a long time. He's been busier lately than before. The blonde is in no hurry to say the reason. The hero smiles back and assures that he is doing great. He asks to wrap the handkerchief that is on display and put it in a beautiful package. The milord has a keen eye for beautiful things. The guy prepared this gift because he continued to worry about the girl. He hopes in his heart that the lady will accept this box and will not object. Considering the vague relationship they have, anything is possible. Going out into the street, the hero breathes a sigh of relief because the woman is still in the cafe. Slow steps are quietly heard along the street, but the joy disappears as soon as a person standing nearby comes into view. It seems his name is Cahendel Coronea, from a famous family of sorceresses. The lady that Eltalark met must be Kinesis's new daughter-in-law. Her husband is a genius who managed to graduate from the magic department at Tanya Academy in 1 year, despite how difficult it was. With good grades, dazzling looks, and the title of the only son of a great sorceress, the hero gained a lot of attention, even though he was a commoner. But Cahendel was an oddball who refused to interact with his classmates. The first meeting of the Lord with his new acquaintance took place long before they met at the academy. That day, the mother brought the baby with her. On the way, she tried not to cry, but still nothing worked. The guy didn't plan to go to that dark place, but that's how he became the one who was present at a fight with another woman. His mother caught his father cheating. All that was left was to watch with a cold, uncomprehending look at what was happening. The man did not stand on ceremony. Even knowing that his precious son was in front of him, he did not understand how the little boy allowed someone to drag him by the hand. The next action was nothing more than a slap again, showing the guy's contempt. It seemed like everything should have ended despite the horror that had to be experienced. But no, the father left Eltalark somewhere in the forest to show him what it means to behave inappropriately. This was all just as a punishment. It was near that lake that the boy was attacked by an unknown monster. Perhaps it would have been the end of his life, but Coronea Jr. appeared there, and the world around him sparkled with golden colors, and that is how the boy shook his life. The hero stands in the middle of the street and cannot move from the spot. His hands seem to be glued to his body just as his feet do not dare to move to the ground, while his eyes are intently following the actions of a couple sitting at one of the restaurant tables. Cahendel's gaze shifted towards the boy, but there was not a drop of kindness or calm in it, because anger filled everything as Eltalark thought he still felt incredibly inferior compared to his savior. Despite the strange feelings that had accumulated inside, I still couldn't stop looking at the two of them. I didn't want to believe that it all started because of that beautiful girl, but there couldn't be another reason. The baby looks very fragile and weak for someone who lives with the great cold sorceress or Lord Cahendel. This person is gentle, just like her gaze, which is directed at the wizard, yet the beauty is full of surprises. The imperial palace of Tanya is, as always, sparkling with beauty. Its grandeur can only be compared to the sky that covers everything around the sorceress' steps, up the steps climbing up. She ponders what influenced the situation. The great sorceress is almost immediately met by knights and other servants who bow their heads. The blonde asks where the magical barrier she set up was destroyed. Fortunately, the crown princess is safe and sound, so there won't be any problems anyway. In fact, the heroine doesn't care about it, but she doesn't want to speak out. It's best to finish the job as soon as possible, so she can return to Elaine for a date. The gaze turns to the open, dark magic located in the distance. This seal could not be broken by some old wizard. But then it is not clear who could break what was installed by the sorceress and on which she spent a lot of time. The Empress and the Crown Princess were the ones who were alone in this castle, and might know something as soon as the girl remembered them. The two appeared from the castle greeting the guest who unfortunately did not really want to see them. Without changing her stony expression, the woman calmly asks how the royal family is doing. They have learned that they can rely on the great wizard of the empire who will not leave the problem, leaving everything to chance. The lady is thanked for her haste for the sake of Tanya's well-being. The blonde only arrived because she feels somewhat responsible for the barrier she created. If she had been forced to come to prove her loyalty, this would not have happened. After a light conversation with the queen, Kinesis turns his gaze to the daughter of the Lasteran family, who somehow became the crown princess. She is much taller but seems to be about the same age as Elaine, no more than 16 to 17 years old. The heroine, as it turned out, was able to rest peacefully, only thanks to the great sorceress. Because of what happened, the shock in the morning was much greater. Now everything has been eliminated because there is a person nearby who will be able to fix the problem in the barrier. Lastaran promises that he will destroy the traces of the terrible incident and restore order in the surrounding area, but in the meantime he asks that they repeat the second attempt to create protection. The castle needs a talisman more than ever before. In other words, the lady is saying that despite the support from the imperial family, a poor barrier was created. A calm face was maintained all this time, but it doesn't take a genius to notice sincere intentions. The queen doesn't recognize the sorceress's value, but perhaps that will change once something more powerful is created. Leaving a sinister smile, the blonde expresses her joy that they had the chance to meet. The overwhelming pressure is mounting, only showing that things won't get any better even with time. As we know, Duenalas el Lastaran is a noble lady who grew up in wealth in one of the most powerful families in the Tanya Empire. The lady grew up with the goal of becoming a great woman of the kingdom, and as expected, she rose to the title of crown princess herself. All that was left for her to do was become empress and take control of both the empire and the entire continent it is located on. She had to learn that there was someone she should fear, a figure so powerful that even the imperial family cowered in her presence, afraid of doing something wrong and then paying the price. The great sorceress could single-handedly defeat any monster she was called upon to face. Her name was Kinesis Coronea, a man whom even the emperor himself did not dare challenge for fear of hurting her feelings. If only this woman had accepted the royal title and sworn allegiance to the crown, she would have been easier to deal with. But of course, she refused as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Father always told Duenalis that the maiden must have some weakness or at least a secret, and when that very thing was discovered, the woman would be in the power of the Listeran family. The heroine had already been told that in this way it would be possible to fool the great wizard, while those who sought this would get what they wanted. It was beneficial to everyone, since it would be possible to kill two birds with one stone. This is just the beginning. The beauty cannot allow fear to interfere with her plans. She must think about how to proceed further while remaining extremely careful. She is the heiress and will soon become Empress. Lowering her embarrassed look, which is as feigned as everything else, the lady asks to come next time with her daughter-in-law. It would be a good idea to become friends. The queen, who was standing nearby, gasped in surprise because she didn't know that her friend had already managed to marry her son off. It was absolutely necessary to invite everyone who wanted to come to the palace for the celebration. A congratulatory party sounded like a great idea. Anger begins to creep more and more into her consciousness when the heroine tries in every possible way to fence herself off from it, realizing that there is no point in this. The sorceress asks how the princess found out, but she could not help but know the next gossip that went through the palace. Even earlier, a rumor had spread through the magic tower that Kinesis was hiding his daughter-in-law in the palace of Coronea and did not allow her to show herself to other people. The realization hits the head almost instantly, and now it is even more surely. The wizard who came to repair the outer gate saw Elaine in the estate or in the yard. What is frightening is that it is not clear who exactly it was and why he went everywhere just to get the wealth of the sorceress's daughter-in-law. The lady's face when she came back home puzzled Jackton, who immediately asked about it. The guy knows that the lady always looks terrible, but today she literally looks like a monster in the flesh. The blonde orders her to be quiet and immediately casts some kind of spell that prevents her from moving her lips so far. She is only holding back because they are not at home, but nothing more. Kainsis asks where Aratia is and then goes forward to the sofa where he falls immediately behind him. The servants who work in this boutique begin to whisper, "No one can believe that they actually saw such a great man." In reality, the woman is even scarier but much angrier, which makes you feel uneasy. There is no point in paying attention to the conversations. They continue to say the same thing anyway, because it is not the law. The secretary runs up to the lady to find out about the situation in the palace. It is difficult to say whether it is more complicated than it seemed. The magical barrier is torn to shreds. There was a burnt black mark on top of the remains. The witch asks what could have caused the damage and had such power. Jackton isn't sure if any commoner can do this, so it was definitely another wizard. The traces don't contain any mana. It's a dead end in terms of reasoning. And now the options are a swordsman with a powerful sword that can do something terrible. The woman knows little about swordsmen, but she is sure that they could not have left such a trace. This is not at all how everything should be going over the options the man thinks about priests, but even this is refuted by the lady. Unfortunately, no matter how much the monks dislike the sorceress, they are obliged to protect the imperial family. The last thing that can be said is something about a demon that the castle has dealt with before. The young man calmly reminds that the creature was defeated and sealed. No one knows what will happen next. After all, Coronea did not seal all the monsters that worshipped their master. From the witch's point of view, this may be possible. So the secretary has no choice but to promise to take up the matter. It will take a few days, but most likely it will be worth it all. Possible options need to be checked. The lady didn't mention that she would still have to create a new magical formation for the crown princess's palace. The memories of that place make you want to turn away and run wherever your eyes look, because you definitely don't want to come back. The absurd girl who calls herself the crown princess abuses her power, thinking that it is natural for her to be protected, but she herself does not know that if she continues to behave so terribly, no one will help her. The servant is frightened by the way the mistress behaves. It seems that they dared to offend her to such an extent that now he has to reap the fruits. It is better to assume that one annoying fly was buzzing near his ear than to name names. The woman is on a different level than the emperor and empress, as those two just act like annoying puppies, while the girl is ready to bite off a leg if it comes to a fight. Even the thought of one day becoming an empress drives the sorceress crazy. She would prefer that the throne be taken by someone good, someone who understands what needs to be done and will try to improve conditions for the people instead of playing a cruel game. Elaine comes out of the fitting room, causing those gathered to immediately look around. The girl does not know when her mother arrived at the boutique, but is incredibly happy to see her smiling and immediately changing her face. The blonde compliments her daughter-in-law on her outfit. The designer standing next to him also came out with the little girl and didn't know that there was such a high-ranking person in his boutique, probably the brunette who created the dress, the one Montel had hired, and the one she had been worried about lately. As it turned out, the girl's name is Everin. The robe that the lady tried on was inspired by summer butterflies. It will emphasize the pale color of the forest and the light hair of the owner, making her more graceful. It seems that Coronea has finally found a designer who suits her personality and who can bring out her inner character. The beauty nods actively because she is truly incredibly happy that she found what she needed. If the lady approves of the chosen place, the heroine would like to pick out the right outfits and then show them off to everyone around. The one who came up with such successful dresses, frankly speaking, deserves gratitude. Moving forward through the salon, the sorceress asks to choose everything that the child will like. Everin heard that the great sorceress is extremely picky, but she is kinder than people said. A person's character is usually not judged immediately. There was already a crowd of people on the street trying to look into the windows. The rumors that Kinesis had visited the Tarshia shopping street turned out to be true. Many had heard that every store that collaborates with the Coronea family becomes trendy. It seems that Everin will now become more popular than Mantel, who was previously considered the best. Pointing to the side, the sorceress asks to send the entire row to the palace. It is necessary to select shoes, fans, and bags that match the color and type for the outfits. The brunette nods and promises that everything will be done in the best possible way. The lady has already chosen about 30 costumes. With a full set, it will cost 800 gold coins, a sum by no means small. Hearing what the woman says, the little girl begins to get noticeably nervous. It seems she has chosen too many outfits without listening. The girl asks Jackton to write a check for 1,000 gold and give it to Everan. The piece of paper only means that it is a deposit for future purchases. Coronea promises to give another check when the things arrive at the estate. The amount is twice the amount that was named for the clothes. It seems that the witch's family always conducts their business this way. If something has a price, the lady is ready to pay accordingly. Understanding that this is also very important in the matter, what the designer asked about receives only one answer, and that is, of course, yes. It seems that Coronea's love for her daughter-in-law has grown so much that it has become a serious problem that Madame herself does not notice she behaves differently from what she used to, and in some ways this can be seen as a positive. After finishing shopping, all three go outside. The little girl is not sure that her mother-in-law could just say that the whole row should be packed and then repeat the same thing in other stores. Of course, it is necessary to maintain the image of the head of the Coronea family, but today the line was definitely crossed. All this is a manifestation of love that a woman shows. She understands that she cannot do it any other way, so she behaves this way. After all, the things she received were more than Elaine deserved. Arity bought not only clothes, shoes, and bags, but also a ring in the popular jewelry store Boutique Darshan. It looked incredibly wonderful because it was made of pure gold with a red diamond. For some reason, the girl is sure that even the crown princess of Tania does not buy so many things. Nodding, the lady again restrains herself from speaking out about that rotten girl. Such a bright soul should not compare herself to the future queen. The duo went to the restaurant right after shopping, as several hours without food had not passed, without a trace. The interior of the room is so beautiful that there are no people at all. Coronea heard that this place is popular among young ladies, so she rented the entire place so that they could have lunch in peace. Coronea takes another bite of the dessert that is in front of her and then almost chokes when she hears her daughter-in-law's offer. She wants to do everything the woman likes for the rest of the day, because of course she cannot refuse. Seeing the strange expression, the beauty immediately lowers her head a little and sadly realizes that it seems to be taking up too much of the woman's time. Most likely, it is time to return to the estate. Everything is not so at all. The lady heard that daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law should go on short dates. Usually, time spent together should be limited to about a few hours. Jekton specifically conducted a survey which showed that daughters-in-law try to spend as little time as possible, and they also like it when their husbands' mothers spoil them with expensive things for no reason. The lady knows that in front of her is not Aiken's real wife, whom he will divorce after 3 years, despite the fact that it is already clear the girl still treats her with care, which makes what is happening seem like a dream from which it is scary to wake up. The baby's face changes, and mother-in-law Kinesis begins to ask worriedly what is wrong and how it can all be fixed. Jekton arrived on time, but he is unhappy that the madam still made the girl cry earlier. The man repeated that none of the daughters-in-law want to go on a date of this kind. The blonde asks for forgiveness once again, promising that this will never happen again. The lady tries to pull herself together and promises that everything will be fine. What happened has nothing to do with what Elaine wanted and what she didn't. The girl thought so deeply that she came to the realization that she tried to hide even from herself. She received the long-awaited ring from her mother, which she did not even receive from her husband. Any daughter-in-law would want to go to meet such a good woman as Kinesis. Only now it turned out that Cahendel did not buy a ring, although usually even for fictitious marriages, couples take care of such seemingly trifles. Sometimes the mother cannot understand what the problem is with this person who behaves inappropriately. The baby reaches out to the madam's body and gently hugs her. She promises that she will never forget this wonderful day, which gave her a lot of pleasure, and what she was not able to get in her past in the near future, they are obliged to repeat it again. Next time, the beauty will prepare more thoroughly. You need to choose a good recipe according to which the girl will cook something that the witch likes. She should not be disappointed under any circumstances. Still, rumors spread even faster after the crowd outside the store. People here and there were talking about the great sorceress being spotted on the street of designers. It was already known that she spent more than 1,000 gold in a new boutique not Mantel's. What made people most angry was the fact that all the money was spent not on Kinesis herself, but on her daughter-in-law, which is not usually the most usual thing. As you know, Helen came from far away. Someone said that she was a fox who came to control her husband's mother and take over the new family. Aratea must have tried on the clothes from an unknown designer since she is a commoner from the West. The great sorceress usually orders everything from Mantle, but they never looked into her shop considering they were standing between the aisles almost the entire day. One of the girls sitting at the table, as it turned out, was an expert in fashionable things, and if we are talking about the Everin boutique, then it is not as bad as it might seem. At first glance, in any case, envy from the fact that everything was received from the mother-in-law is present. Many people mistakenly thought that the blonde was a terrible person, but it turned out that she was quite kind since she treated Elaine like that. Now it was time for the crown princess to speak. The lady heard that Cahendel's new wife was incredibly beautiful. Those gathered at the table instantly drooped, and now they can only mutter something about how this is not true. No one can compare to Her Highness in the history of the entire Tanya Empire. There has never been such a charming person. The future queen invited the sorceress and her daughter-in-law to her ball, which she is organizing. All that remains is to wait and meet the duo in the palace. One of the friends is outraged. The Corania family is not noble enough to be invited to the royal chambers. The rumors had gone so far that it was already known that Aiken's wife was from a family living in the kingdom of Soren, a small city in the west on the very edge of the continent, not the best place to meet someone from the capital. The red-haired woman thinks that there is something fishy about this story. The lady asks to conduct an investigation into the beauty's past, and of course the blonde looks surprised by such a proposal. It would be right to find out more about the new friend. Only a week had passed since Madame visited the designer street with Elaine, and Priest Mohan arrived at the castle to give the girl a medical examination and make sure that everything was all right with her, also checking what was hindering her growth. The little girl sits down on the sofa in the waiting room where they were already waiting for her. She is incredibly happy to meet you, and the same thing is said to her by a man in white robes. A priest from the temple serves under the direction of the Holy Spirit and the god Elukea. Since his main duty is to be a doctor, you can just call him by his name. The first question, of course, is related to medicine in general. As it turned out, this is true. The baby has never been to a doctor, and if the words of the madam are true, she still has not started menstruating, which indicates the correct development of the female body. For the sake of clarity, the brunette reminds that a doctor is obliged to maintain confidentiality of information about his patients so as not to harm them in the future. If Elaine has questions or complaints, the best solution would be to tell in detail. Half an hour later, the examination continued as before. So far, everything is normal, but the girl is much shorter and weighs less than ordinary aristocrats at her age. He does not understand whether this is normal or whether there is a malfunction in the body. As the blonde remembers, she was always the same height since her father died when she was about 10 years old. She almost never grew again. For some reason, the memories again give pain straight to the heart, leaving not a single chance. The transfer of mental shock or some other turning point could well slow down growth several times, allowing one to behave exactly like this. The hero asks to look with the help of his divine power in order to understand the situation a little better. As soon as the guy touched his head, something seemed to hit him, and he had to step back. Nothing will help, it all seems too strong, and the atmosphere around seems to thicken. The first thing the man asks is if the girl is taking any medication. Mother always gave medications that most likely served as vitamins, and this began since the Viscount passed away. The lady forgot about them for the last few weeks as she was busy with other worries that piled up with the move. Not everything prescribed by the doctor is beneficial, because sometimes even the best thing on a certain person will give a completely different effect. Mohan takes the jar with capsules, promising that he will study all the ingredients in detail, and in the meantime, he will conduct a detailed investigation. The brunette asks not to worry. He is sure that the girl will still be able to grow up becoming the same as all her peers, and at this very moment her menstrual cycle will just begin nodding her head. Elaine sincerely thanks the doctor for the consultation. Before leaving the estate, the hero looks back one last time and remembers that he has something important. A box with a gift bow appears in his hands. His close friend asked him to give it to him, who said that he met the girl on the designer street, Tarshia, on the day of his date with his mother-in-law. The silver-haired professor was the man who came up to the cafe and started a casual conversation. Eltalark must have been worried that he had accidentally offended his new acquaintance, so he decided to buy something cute. In fact, nothing happened, and even the professor himself did nothing. You can see from her face that perhaps a thought process is starting in the girl's head, but Mohan interrupts it. His friend firmly insisted that he give the gift, but if it bothers Elaine, you can always throw it away. The doctor promises that he will return as soon as he conducts the necessary tests and receives the results. The little girl watches him go, wishing him a safe journey. As soon as the door closes, the gaze switches to the handkerchief that was in his hands. It is unclear why the man gave it away, if the thing actually looks quite expensive for something that is usually given to the first comer. The woman called her son into her office, who came anyway, but not in the mood. The first thing he was met with was shouting, which tried to convey the lady's idea. She demands that the boy divorce Coronea so that his mother can officially adopt her. When the lady called the blonde into the office right after the date with the girl, he must have decided that something had happened between them, but he never expected that everything would turn out like this. They ask him why there was silence in the room. If a man decides to attack his mother now, Elaine will not be at all delighted since she has become attached to her, but now a hot fire is burning inside. She wants to at least once hit the wall with her fist in order to release the accumulated anger. The moment with the words of Milady slowly emerges in his head, who asked not to break the walls or objects in the palace so that their agreement would be valid. Exhaling, the young man calmly notes that his mother has already begun to treat Aratea as her own daughter. There is no need to worry here. The woman had already managed to find out that the guy had been planning to leave the beauty for a long time, and since they had already agreed with the baby, they could end it all right now, just not wasting time. Now the face shows a noticeable hostility which could already be felt from an early age. The guy does not understand why the witch behaves this way and why she is so interested in her son's marriage. The lady would not be so attentive if someone evil and strange was brought into the house, but in this case she has every right to do so. Sometimes it becomes more and more difficult to understand what this woman wants to say, but in the end it is possible. Now the blame is shifted to the son, because it was he who chose such a kind and innocent girl that she even feels a little sorry for her. The sorceress cannot stop worrying about the baby, realizing that now she is under her responsibility. After what was said, the woman throws a stack of some documents on the table which immediately end up in Aishin's hands. She learned about the details of Elaine's childhood, and of course is sure that the guy also knew everything and most likely even saw it with his own eyes when he was in that village in the west, defending himself and trying to find the reason why everything happened. The young man assures that he himself did not know all the details. He decided to take the beauty from that house before something terrible happens. Not experiencing any feelings except pity for the little one, the hero did what he had to. It's time for the screams of the sorceress, who, although she hears about Aratia's mother for the first time, hates her more than anyone after reading it. It's hard to believe that such a terrible person was simply left to live in peace, but the husband couldn't do anything with his wife's loved one. The blonde still sadly remembers the moment of their meeting and how calmly the lady accepted the money, deciding that she did not want to know where the simple merchant got it from. She ordered him to settle down somewhere and keep the annoying daughter away from the estate. Most likely the family would never see her again. Usually the sorceress agrees, but this time she cannot allow the situation to drift. Such a monster cannot be left unpunished, but the lady cannot avenge Elaine as a mother-in-law either. Just to be on equal terms with Aratia's mother, the woman is obliged to adopt her daughter-in-law. The story made the guy laugh sincerely. He does not remember when Coronea ever cared about statuses. Usually she does what she pleases. The blonde cannot agree, however, this time it is all connected with Elaine. And all this is much more important. There is nothing more to say. The young man does not understand what happened in such a short time and why his mother became so close to his wife. It would seem that their relationship should be strained. The woman needs to calm down and figure out exactly how she should behave, because at this rate she won't get anywhere. She needs to be content with being the mother-in-law of a child like Elaine. Besides, the young man had already received his father's blessing, so he couldn't just cancel everything on his mother's whim. Out of all the possible people, the young man chose this particular person, and there's nothing to say about it because it's all too strange. The man does not understand why the girl cares so much about all this, since the security of the empire is more important to her. She does not care at all about what her own son is doing. He has long understood what is what. Therefore, he realizes the truth of life. The guy belongs to himself. Usually, Coronea really wasn't interested in what the man was doing, but this time, things were a little different. If all this was connected with his father, that was a different story and it would have to be sorted out. The woman would definitely find all the answers to the questions that interested her. The lady asks for the last time to make sure that Aiden breaks up with his wife forever. She can't stand to see her suffer in a loveless marriage, so it's better to be kind and keep a low profile, trying to define herself. Not realizing what had just been said, the blonde anxiously asks what had happened. He had never heard his mother talk about love before in her entire life. The topic was taboo in this castle, and nothing had changed. It seems that the witch is getting old now. Her voice seems weak when she says this, and it makes one feel uneasy. The woman that Cahandel knows is comparable to the palace of Coronea. Just as strong, she will not bleed even if a knife is pierced through her body, and then suddenly such a surprise. The couple may have already stopped contacting, but to make sure that everything is finished, the man is simply obliged to break all ties with Elaine as soon as the contract is completed. If the girl one day falls in love and marries someone else, the blonde has no right to pretend to be kind. Of course, it is known that the maiden has every right to a new husband and a different life away from this family. But the hero is outraged by how calmly the mother says such words to her own son, who can take all this too literally. Finally, the lady allows the secretary to enter the room, showing his head from behind the door. Jackton carefully looks around, trying to figure out if he is sleeping. The two are together, but nothing around was destroyed as it used to be on a regular basis. Immediately after this, the guy was thrown back into the corridor, shouting at him, perhaps only for the sake of infringing the servant the mother and son united at least for a short time. Now they need to endure what is happening. The madam often loses her temper, but she pays generously for working nearby. Jackton misses Lady Elaine, who is always calm and even smiling. She is like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. The woman orders to find some work for Aichin so that he can earn at least a little money. The young man, as usual, did not react in the best way. He thinks that he does not look like someone who in any sense needs money. If the problem is not in the means, it is unclear how it happened that Elaine did not even receive a ring for the wedding. The job is given only to buy some kind of gift for the daughter-in-law. If everything were different, most likely the hero would not have received anything. What the Lord will have to do is restore the magical barrier in the palace of the Crown Princess. Something happened there again. It is imperative to find the one behind all the problems. Only in this way will it be possible to fix what happened and make your task at least a little easier. Going out into the corridor, the guy still does not understand how he ended up as a henchman. Elaine is standing on the stairs below next to the maid. She is as sweet as always. The beauty acted the same way when the couple lived together in a shack, but now the hero is surprised that she still works hard despite the new place of residence. Now that you think about it, the girl did not change because she thought there was no point in it. As soon as the man graduated from the academy, he immediately moved away. He found refuge in an old shack, which is located in a peaceful village in the mountains. The reason why he had to live in seclusion in a place surrounded by a concealment spell and a protective magic formation is simple. The guy could solve some issues without being seen by the spirit. He was constantly being watched, but no one knew about it. All he had to do was try to get out of the loop and lead his life as if nothing was happening and everything was fine. Over time, the young man decided to get married, and thanks to this event, he ended up living with Elaine. They moved into a squalid house, which was called something special for Aichin. Unfortunately, he did not have other options, even realizing that this was not the best. For the noble lady, the hovel was a horror in the flesh, but when he managed to see how the beauty was doing housework and getting along with the geese, the hero was discouraged and even grateful for the help. It was difficult for him, despite his possession of one of the most powerful forms of magic. One day the man decided that this could not go on any longer. Using work as an excuse, the wizard went in search of a better home. However, when he returned, he did not find Elaine, since by that time she had been kidnapped and taken away to the palace of Corania. Although Cahendel felt better about finding his wife, he can't imagine how the girl felt forced to live in an unfamiliar place because of a man she barely knew. He would like the couple to be friends, but after everything that happened, that will probably never happen. All this time, the husband did not care about his wife's feelings, even close to the way his own mother, known as the Ice Witch, who does not care about anyone, did. It is better to realize the mistake as soon as possible. The sooner the easier it is to repair the damage done. When Elaine remarried in 3 years, she would finally have the life she deserved, and with thoughts of the beauty's future came thoughts of Lord Eltalark, who had then approached the little girl in the cafe and struck up a conversation. Shaking his head and trying to shake off the spell, the wizard does not understand why. The idea of an alliance between Aratia and this man suddenly came to mind. He will definitely not be suitable because he looks and behaves like an unworthy underling. Elaine herself will choose a partner for herself, but it will be someone else. Because of the witch, the young man now thinks only about the strange, even if he understands that this is not the best course of action. In any case, the wedding was for show, so she will be able to marry her beloved despite all those rules that will be destroyed. Inside, the man feels suspiciously insulted. Mohan was transported back to the temple again from the place where he was sent by the sorceress's order. The warp gate is impressive because without their help, the journey home would have taken 4 days on horseback or even longer by cart. In the castle, divine power and mana, as usual, came into conflict because this usually happens with any priest who is near a wizard. This time, the man did not even feel uncomfortable. There were no barriers for him and nothing interfered. Near the entrance to the temple, Mohan is met by another priest, who was worried for no reason. He hoped that his friend would get there safely, and that's exactly how it all ended while the guy was gone. Nothing strange happened, so he immediately gets down to business in his hands. There is a jar with capsules which should be studied in detail. The priest goes to his place. Perhaps he should read until important results come. Before sitting down at the table, the hero once again checked the presence of papers and documents and even almost managed to start. But at that moment, a friend appeared in the room. A noble person like a lord is simply obliged to knock before entering a room. I apologize. Eltalark smiles and assures that next time he will do everything according to the instructions. They have not seen each other for a very long time. This will make the meeting even more pleasant. The first thing the brunette asks the guy is what he forgot in the monastery. A few days ago during the conversation, it was decided that the man would take a short break, but this time the hero dropped in just to say hi before leaving. The joke is sparkling, but it does not mean that the hero will not ask questions about the real reason it is hard to believe that one word will be what the Lord wants to say after forcing the cleric to do his bidding. The gift was delivered safe and sound. Lastaran did not arrive to check the work because he knows in advance about his friend who always carries out every assignment in the best possible way to stretch out the intrigue a little. The boy sits down at the table. Smiling even brighter than before, the young man inquired about how things were going in Coronea Castle. He had heard that there was frost there, even in the middle of summer due to the mountain on which the estate was located, and also that the palace was as majestic as the king's, in no way inferior to it in all aspects. The rumors turned out to be true because now Mohan even suffers a little after enjoying the light breeze in the mountains. The man can no longer breathe normally in the area where he lives, and in general, it constantly seems to him as if he is suffocating. The blonde nods, getting to the main point. He is concerned about whether everything is okay with the young lady, but the answer is not at all what one would hope for. Unfortunately, the hero cannot reveal the details of his patient's medical record, but he can assure his friend that there is absolutely no point in worrying. The guy definitely looks like he's extremely relieved, but he still insists that he wasn't even worried. The girl may seem unmarried because she looks so young, but you can't forget, she's Coronea Cahendel's wife. Eltalark waves his hands, taking a defensive position as words he just intends to make friends with the beauty, since he understands that he will not get anything more. Mohan does not remember that his acquaintance was ever interested in aristocrats. Before, usually everything was the other way around. Deciding to ask questions in response, the young man asks what caught his attention about Mrs. Elaine and whether she is the ideal type. Realizing that such a conversation will not go further, the young man quickly gets up only to leave the office. The endless affairs of the boy's father and the constant suffering of his mother left only dark memories of his childhood. He still remembers every time the woman closed herself off to cry a little, thereby releasing her true emotions. After all that had happened, Eltalark had unintentionally pushed away the girls who were interested in him. This time it seemed like the course of events had changed a little. It was no longer possible to get Elaine out of his head because all his thoughts were only about her. One of the reasons could be Cahendel himself, judging by how the young missus reasoned. Then he treats her badly or does not pay her due attention at all, which she, as the owner of a chic character, certainly deserves more than anyone else. The man never understood what the beauty meant when she said that it was normal to be unloved by her husband. Up until that moment, the hero had never seen aristocrats reasoning like that. With her actions, the heroine awakens interest in the professor in all aspects. The blonde wanted to give the scarf as a gift personally, and now thinks that it is a shame that he had to ask Mohan about it. There is no point in worrying about the current situation so much. He is sure that very soon they will see each other at least once more. Before dreaming about his future, the hero simply has to pull himself together. He has a meeting with his sister, which he managed to postpone somehow until now, so as not to get a scolding from Lair. He will have to show up and also behave as if there is only pure delight inside. It is clear that the heiress of this empire is a close person, but I don't want to meet Duenalis at all. Probably her chambers were attacked, but according to my father, she was not harmed. This is even for the best. The carriage had already approached the castle before going out into the street. Bella looked at the road for the last time and, of course, did not expect to see Lady Elaine at the gate, about whom he thought almost the entire way she, as always, is. Beautiful pink clothes complement her fair skin and blonde hair. The professor hurries to the girl and immediately greets her. He expresses his surprise, realizing that the lady feels the same. She smiles. It is always pleasant to chat with a man, even if before that they were not able to have a constructive dialogue longer than 10 minutes. When the blue-eyed girl thought for just a second, Eltalark did not miss the opportunity to ask her what she was thinking about. It seemed that her thoughts should now be occupied with a beautiful gift wrapped and presented with sincere intentions. The girl is about to answer and is even thinking about how to express her gratitude more calmly, but at that very moment they are interrupted by someone standing behind them. Icon appeared behind the beauty, whose face almost immediately changed, showing his obvious displeasure. Right in front of him stood the man she was already glaring at, unfamiliar to the girl until today. She did not understand what was happening. Turning back to his wife and starting to smile, the blonde calmly asks what gift she received, and she rummages in her purse to get a scarf. She once met a professor, and yes, he sent a thing with beautiful embroidery through a priest. Cahandle doesn't understand when they managed to pass on such an important thing behind his back, because it seemed to him as if everything was going well, or at least would be fine until this man approaches the castle. Now the look turned towards the familiar one becomes even more furious. It shows everything that has accumulated inside. The hero is behaving even stranger than ever before. If he continues to treat someone like this who only gave him a small gift, most likely people around him will think that he is jealous. This cannot be allowed. Untruth should not cloud their minds. It's understandable why aristocrats might think that way, but in reality there's nothing good about it. Eltalark was the first to notice the frightened expression on his acquaintance's face. It seems like she's being put in an awkward position, and that's not a good part of this situation. The young man smiles and tries to start a conversation with Icon. They haven't seen each other for a long time, and perhaps they don't remember him anymore, but that's not a problem. Interrupting the connection in the middle of a sentence, the man says that he couldn't forget such a person. His facial expression still hasn't changed. The son of Duke Lasteran joined the academy this semester, and of course everyone immediately started talking about the mysterious person rumors usually spread faster than usual, but this time there were too many of them. The boy was supposed to have silver hair and purple eyes. He had not left his family's estate since birth because his father for some reason forbade it, talking about some kind of inequality. But in general, the hidden reasons were hidden. People switched from one person to another, completely not noticing what was happening. Some student remembered that the son of the great sorceress also entered this academy, even though he most likely had nothing to do here, considering all the powers he possessed. In the end, it seems that the rumors were true, because at that moment, a handsome blonde man appeared in the yard. The students could feel the greatness of the wizard in the presence of the man, who in turn walked around the yard with his head held high and not paying attention to other people. The boy did not believe that he would meet his savior, but everything turned out to be exactly like that. The reason why the hero, as the son of a powerful and wealthy duke, applied to the academy in a quota as is known difficult to enter, is something special. In fact, the boy could not forget the spell he saw performed by Cahandle on that special day. The memory of how the monster attacked him was terrible. The red eyes are still sometimes visible in nightmares. The good thing about joining this academy was that he would be able to see the one who became the most important thing in his life at least once more, and life itself served as a reminder every day since Eltalark could still breathe. Coronea, as usual, showed the best results in academic lessons. The teachers were delighted by. The time the Duke miraculously managed to meet the sorcerer again, he improved his abilities several times. The boy wanted to make friends and learn at least a few of the tricks the young man had, but in the end he didn't even give a chance to take a few steps towards future friendships, constantly ignoring him. For Lasteran, his savior was always special, but he had other thoughts on this matter. For the guy, the Duke was no different from those who paid attention to him only because he was the son of the great sorceress from the mountain. Animal training as one of the lessons should not be underestimated, because it also carries its own importance for this subject. They give only 1 point, but this does not mean that it is something so simple, subject to any person. Everyone on this planet is a valuable creature that God Ilukaya loves. And sometimes it is not clear whether it will be possible to meet again or whether it will be the last time it is customary to look into the eyes of animals to open your heart as soon as a person manages to understand their inner world, as well as gain trust. It will be possible to begin the message. After all the teacher's explanations, a squabble began between the students as one tried to explain to the other how to communicate correctly. But no one was right. The wizard succeeded again, in contrast to his attitude towards people. He treated animals completely differently. Everyone who was brought to the clearing became attached to the blonde as if he were some kind of miracle. The rabbit was the very first one who wanted to jump through the ring at the master's command. The Duke looked with blessing at his outstanding abilities, which at the same time caused the strongest envy. Because of his powers, the boy graduated from the academy in just 1 year, so he succeeded. Now he frowns, realizing that it's as if they are trying to give him a lecture about the fact that he didn't know the son of Duke Lasteren. After the sorcerer disappeared from the face of the earth for a long time, he stands in front of the man again, but already as the husband of the young lady, the little girl again feels uncomfortable and therefore is going to somehow resolve the current situation. Leaning towards the man's ear, the girl asks him to behave a little better. If he knows the one who is now standing in front of them, he is simply obliged to show at least some manners in relation to everything, so that everything ends well. The little girl believes that the hero is behaving rudely, not at all as he should. No matter how the young man looks at it, his behavior is still completely wrong. He cannot say anything. You have to imagine how difficult it is for the interlocutor, who did not expect such an attitude towards himself, and therefore you should apologize as quickly as possible. It's great that the hero understands everything from the first word and tries to behave a little better than before. The guy had never been scolded like that before, so too many different questions formed in his head. After a short conversation, the lady asks to apologize to the professor on behalf of her husband. The guy behaved rudely. Completely. Not as it should have been. They spent a lot of time in the Shazrias Mountains. So for now, the hero is not in the best condition due to the heat in the capital. The weather was one of the main factors that affected his well-being from the very beginning. The blonde nods, assuring Milady that nothing terrible happened. He doesn't like it when conflicts arise, so he hushed up the matter rather quickly. The only strange thing is that the two came to the palace, deciding that this was the place for them. It was probably not just like that, there was some meaning behind it. Answering for his wife, Icon recalls the original plan that was laid out. The couple dropped by on their way to investigate the attack on the princess's chambers. The wizard himself laid out this route, and the little girl is simply an accompanying person. This time the answer was more depressing, as if he didn't like the answer. It's normal for members of the royal family and aristocrats to marry to get rich, and then only show respect for each other. Nothing more. Such relationships have been practiced for centuries. No one saw a problem in them. These two look like they really care about each other. Maybe it's something hidden on a more hidden level, something important. The gaze is drawn to the hands that are intertwined. The Corinians are known for being richer than even the royal family, but for some reason, there is no wedding ring in sight. Eltalark missed something because apparently the relationship is not as wonderful as it might seem. After the first conversation, the blonde thanks for the gift. This is something she should have done much earlier. The thing is quite refined and beautiful. Milady was surprised by the artistic flair of her new acquaintance. Gratitude is useless because the box was given with pure intentions, which never changed after these words. Almost immediately in the distance, wild screams were heard about the fact that the daughter-in-law of the great sorceress herself had arrived. No one expected this, so for now the reaction is the same as all the fans. In just a second, a lot of people in robes gathered around who did not believe that the beauty matched the rumors and her appearance, and most likely her behavior. The baby is a bit like a squirrel, which was raised specifically to allow other people to admire. They came here only to show the palace of the crown princess. That's all this shouting is starting to irritate, making you wonder whether all this really falls into the category of necessary and, most importantly, important things. This whole crowd could have been avoided. Lord Cahendel also arrived, which created even more confusion because there were many more admirers of his behavior. The first person in line is the one who will show Elaine the city and take her to familiar places that will be the best option for spending time together. Milord addressed the brunette, who was still in a stupor, unable to believe what was happening. Leaning towards his wife, Icon kindly asks her to get some fresh air, promising that he would try to finish his business as soon as possible in order to be together again. The man is now trusted, which means his ego almost instantly rises to the skies. He is not the strongest of all presented, but still has some relation to what is happening. Eltalark is also going to leave. That same smile still remains on his face. At the last moment, the young man grabs his companion by the hand and pulls him towards himself. The man was also heading to the palace to see the crown princess, so he is obliged to go along with him. In response, he hears some kind of indistinct muttering. He is frightened by the expression on Kahendel's face, who now behaves the same way as at the very beginning of the meeting. The professor is simply obliged to greet his sister. While he is in this castle, he is not given a choice anyway, and is dragged somewhere towards the entrance. The little girl does not see a problem in what is happening, so she simply waves goodbye. Walking behind the bushes, the boy finally lets go of his hand after several quiet requests to leave him alone. The boy orders to leave Elaine alone. He shows his true face when his wife is no longer around. The maiden had already been promised, and she was a separate person. There is no reason to be kind to the lord. As the hero said, his wife is his property, so being as nice as he is to other women is not an option. Everything may not end well, despite all the good aspects of this situation. The blonde, fortunately, hadn't changed at all in some sense. It was even a little sad. His hands still shook at the mere sight of his savior, so this was another thing that the man managed to notice almost immediately. The hero hesitated and was unable to answer. The trembling really did start to take over his entire body again, preventing him from concentrating on the words and what was happening around him in general. Something strange still remained. All this no longer meant anything. It seemed that he had managed to skillfully hide his fear all this time, avoiding any problems. But the man knew from the very beginning. He simply kept silent. The girl again called the secretary to her office, who almost immediately appeared at the first call. She decided to find out what Elaine was doing now. As it turned out, the lady went out for a walk with the young lord. The sir went to the palace of the heiress of the empire for work, and his wife went to the street of designers. Turning away, the blonde nods, hiding her gloomy character. Kriya accompanies the girl all this time while they talk, so that nothing happens. It would seem that the guy has a long tongue without bones, which only shows his great abilities dangled, but in fact he is quite capable. Realizing that the lady's expression has not changed, Jackton still decides to ask what is bothering the woman and why she is behaving this way. The lady is worried she does not understand what to say, although usually everything is laid out on the shelves in her head. The secretary is now also among those who are trying to decide how to react to this. It turns out that the indestructible sorceress can also be alarmed, but simply not to show her true feelings. Saying this, the lady makes the monsters dig themselves out of snowy graves. A woman shouldn't pretend to be a weakling without any reason, because it's always better to tell a talented servant what's going on in her head. The heroine remains silent for another minute, looking thoughtfully out the window, and then exhaling, finally agrees to say something. Apparently, the lady had been neglecting her own son a lot. He had always been a naughty child, so she decided that running away from home was only due to puberty, which would soon pass. Settling everything that was happening, it seemed that the gentleman had initially left to resolve the issue concerning Rias. Speaking of this name, the reason why Kinesis built a palace in the Shazrias Mountains is a secret of the Korania family that is not disclosed to anyone outside. Sir has always been in abundance, and it would seem that he should be happy, but it was clear that nothing would work out. The mana and money were not running out, but it seemed that the hero was too focused on his father. Now, when the woman once again plays over the details of their conversation in her head, she understands that the guy said that he discussed everything with his father and made it so that he could agree to his son's marriage. By the way, the heroine wants to know if there is a goose in the hut, which she had heard about earlier. Lady Elaine said that she looked after the geese with her husband, but otherwise, nothing caught her eye. The behavior was ordinary, just like that cherished place. Nodding again, it only remains to think, and not try to make any contact that is set up. Rias's presence could not go unnoticed by Jekton, So he told everything. It was time to find out the results of the examination of the daughter-in-law, which Mohan recently conducted, and which it would be worth inquiring about. So far, everything is within normal limits. However, the vitamins she was taking were confiscated by the priest himself as soon as he saw the jar. The man advised her not to take anything until a full analysis was done, which would make it clear what was going on. In this case, the confidence is 100%. Such a cool doctor can be trusted. The lady can be understood because almost all the clergy hate her. So all that remains is to treat everything with suspicion. The guy has a pretty good medical reputation, so most likely there will be no problems. Priests, as is well known, are also lovers of money. No one in their right mind has ever refused various amounts. The sorceress orders to give as much money as is generally required, just to ensure that the investigation is carried out as quickly as possible. After all the instructions were quite clear, the madam stood up and was about to go somewhere. As it turned out, the woman was going to go to the place where her fiancé once lived with Condell. While the secretary asks if an escort is needed, only a hand appears from the bright circle of magic waving to the side. It would be better for the lady not to see any documents when she finally returns back. She is going to often look for clues in the house where the man and the daughter-in-law lived, and does not regret disturbing with personal problems someone who should not have been involved in this in the first place. Jackton, as usual, will have to wait at home in case the situation suddenly worsens and becomes dangerous. Both son and mother have a habit of pretending to be rude, but deep down, they have a vulnerable heart and a completely different mind. She is much better than they may seem. The man walks into the street and, pointing ahead, explains to the girl that this is a designer street in the city of Tanya. He sounds quite convincing when he says that you can spend time there in a free environment. The lady quietly calls the wizard to say something. At first he was even afraid that he did something wrong. The baby smiles and blinks her eyes charmingly. She asks to call her simply by her name, since it will be much more comfortable for them that way. If so, the hero asks to call him simply Kreia instead of any regalia. Of course, such a sweet dialogue immediately melted the heart, making him smile even more. Realizing that she now has complete freedom of action, the lady asks to go to one interesting place that still interests her. The man promises to take the guest wherever she wants. He knows literally every nook and cranny in Tanya, so he will show any place she wants except for the royal palace, which is off limits to outsiders. Smiling as well, Elaine calmly announces her desire to visit the academy. Kreia even thought that he misheard. The university is an ordinary building made of bricks. It is strange that a young lady wants to go to such a dull place instead of staying on this lively designer street. The academy is full of wisdom. Everything that is possible to acquire new knowledge is collected there. It has been repeatedly said that it is there that the largest library in the world is located, where access is open, 15 hours a day. Everything is done only for the new generation and their education. The house for talented people is still a priority. Kreia doesn't think there's anything special about the fact that even he graduated, but the lady seems to think otherwise. The little one doesn't think she'll be able to meet someone as knowledgeable. She wants to get this as an exception. Clearing his throat, the man nods. If his friend wants to go so much, there will be no problem moving towards the entrance. The blonde begins to ask questions about Madame. As it turned out, she appeared out of nowhere, even if some thought that the academy was in her life before becoming a witch. Coronea is a famous hero who fought off monsters of various ranks and saved the empire from collapse. The woman also supported the magic tower, so many of the students call her nothing but a master. She has quite a lot of students. The story only hints at the fact that the mages respect the lady's mother-in-law. She couldn't imagine that something like that would be true, but now all she can do is smile and nod. It sounds better than it sounds. Kinesis's son graduated from the academy in just 1 year, and just like that became an idol for the other mages. Nodding, one would have to assume that Jackton also finished his training, but no, the guy, just like the lady, appeared out of nowhere and became her secretary, a loyal assistant in everything. No one has any idea where he came from or what exactly he studied before that, in order to have all the knowledge that he has at the moment. For some reason, the girl thought that her husband and friend were classmates. It seemed to her that they were close, but in fact, this turned out to be untrue. Not always everything that seems is what will actually remain in reality. The girl did not immediately understand this. What is true is what they say about Lord Eltalark. He entered the academy at the same time as Kehendel, and they studied together for the entire year until the wizard's son graduated. The girl did not think that this would be true, but there is nothing left to do but nod restrainedly. Kriya finally brought his companion to the entrance to the academy, but he himself was incredibly tired despite the fact that they had not walked that far. The little girl looked around with delight and waved her hand to her friend who promised that he would return. He needed to agree on whether it was possible to enter the library. The negotiations did not take more than 2 minutes, and now the brunette has returned with a sad expression on his face. He bows his head and sincerely apologizes for how everything turned out. The lady does not immediately understand what he is talking about. She hopes that this is not bad news that she will now have to listen to. Due to the attack on the palace of the Crown Princess, the Academy has banned entry to outsiders. Unfortunately, these are the new rules until it is found out who wanted to harm the future Empress. So this time it will not be possible to visit the library. Even though Kreia is a graduate, he too no longer has any privileges, which can't help but be upset. It is not customary to enter without permission from someone who works there. So in any case, all that remains is to resign himself and make an appointment for the next time when everything has calmed down. The blonde tries to calm the wizard down, gently patting him on the shoulder and begging him not to cry. As this is a serious incident, they are obliged to follow the rules. They did not do this on a whim. There was a need. The young man continues to complain. If he knew that this would happen, he would have become a professor and not a worker in the magic tower. If you think about it, somewhere nearby is the teacher Eltalark who could help with this. Doing it with a smile, the thought is almost immediately rejected by the heroine herself, because her husband reacted badly to an acquaintance. Putting him in an awkward position would be pure disrespect. Lady Elaine suggests going back to the designer street where you can find some other entertainment. The carriage standing in the distance was unremarkable, but inside it was the princess herself smiling nastily. The blonde realizes that that person is Elaine. Finally managed to look at the appearance. One of the future Empress's girlfriends heard that Kehendel's wife was incredibly beautiful, so there were no words left as soon as they saw her short stature and ordinary appearance. But rumors should never be trusted. People usually distort the truth greatly, adding a little of their own. The girl politely asks Madame Hastin to check the list of guests invited to her birthday party to make sure that young Coronea is left on the list. Duenalis is sure that everyone is interested in getting to know the great sorceress's daughter-in-law better. The servant is sure that no one can outshine Her Highness. Virgo is looking forward to the next month. She looks around. Her brother has gone somewhere. It is humiliating after his sister was attacked. The Aratia family had never attended any events. A commoner has no right to refuse an invitation from a princess, so everything will change. When everyone sees the girl from the rumors, they will most likely be very surprised. She will be a simple country girl among ordinary people who are aristocrats. The lady will allow Eltalark to accompany the baby. He let his sister down, so now he has no right to refuse. There is some kind of commotion near the castle. The wizards arrive to restore the barrier. The girl is sure that she asked the great sorceress to take care of everything, but it seems that she ignored the request. The heiress is greeted almost immediately by everyone gathered. She notices light hair. It seems that Coronea has come after all, deciding not to linger. The figure turned around. It was Kehendel. He had come to restore the barrier in place of his mother. The boy looks just like Kinesis, but there is something about him. Eltalark steps forward, greeting his sister, whom he had missed so much. The lady with her head down pretends that she is pleased with this meeting. While turning Duenalas, the man asks her to leave. It is dangerous here, so there is nothing to do. The girl began to show her bad habit. The father always used his power to control everyone and everything. While the girl grew up next to him, doing whatever she wanted, she hired only male servants to give humiliating tasks. Lasteran wanted to have everything that others had, and if the princess could not get her dream, she preferred to destroy it, leaving no trace. The blonde reminds that a virgin can't do anything. Icon is already married. She just wants to make friends. The professor said the same thing to the priest. Then, the wizard can't believe he had to deal with a member of the royal family. It's really annoying. He needs to finish this quickly so he can get back to Elaine. The hand goes down to the railing to close the barrier with magic. For some reason, it feels uneasy. You can feel his energy, which is just beating outward. A woman appeared from the side, which frightened the lord, who was deep in his thoughts. He did not understand why she was reaching under his arm and what she wanted. Waving his hand, the boy asks to step aside while he draws a magical formation from scratch. He again collects white light in his hands. A bright light spreads around, and beautiful magical flowers crawl along the ground, gathered in one voice, admiring the skill of the young man, while the heiress stands speechless. Golden hair, a handsome face, and impressive magical skills. All this belongs to a charming man. The princess will definitely get him. Coronea did her job with flying colors, because now the protective barrier is several times stronger than before, and the wizards start clapping at the command. The young man is talented, making eyes at him. The little girl asks if she can address him as great, knowing full well that this is not at all what is needed. These words are a direct insult to the hero's mother. It cannot be that Duenalis did not understand the consequences and behaved so calmly. It seems that even the crown princess hates the witch. She acts as if she did something to her. The lady simply did not take the vow and did not obey. The girl continues to look at the hero, who is silent. She is already delighted with his actions, so of course she wants to repay him in full. Lastarin orders the servants to prepare snacks and drinks, but she is interrupted mid-sentence by a young man who asks her not to do anything. The blonde offers to enjoy some delicious food with his older brother. He gets along well with women. It's time for Icon to leave. His beloved is already waiting for him. It is hard to believe that this man is more interested in returning to the commoner than in fulfilling the imperial order, and this makes him angry. Apparently, the boy will only look at Duenalis when he loses his wife, since, as the hooded men said, the Coronea family must be destroyed. Kreia points to the dessert that was served to them. This kind of food is the most popular lately, so it makes sense that they should like it. The brunette thought that the beauty didn't like it. She was right. They weren't even close to those prepared in the palace of Coronea. The lady quickly apologized. The husband appeared behind her and noticed that the girl was already bored with the wizard. The young man had sorted out his affairs relatively quickly. The hero was worried about the baby, so he tried to return as quickly as possible. It was time to go home. The blonde thanks the magician, only thanks to him. She was not bored because the tour of the city took a good part of the day. It was pleasant. The man did his best and asks to call him as soon as he is needed again. After a calm farewell, the couple heads down the street. It turned out that it was not worth going home yet. The wizard said those words to get rid of that clingy one who seemed not so boring to the lady. Icon wanted to show his wife a place located on a platform from which the entire city was visible. He often came here during his studies at the academy. The sunset is impressive, considering that you won't see anything like it in your mother's palace. The blonde agrees that it is one of the most wonderful phenomena. The beauty noticed the smile on his face and couldn't help but ask why the young man was behaving like that. It was clearly unnecessary. They would divorce in just 3 years, and Aishan just wanted his girlfriend to have as many good memories as possible before she gained her freedom. The face changes. The heroine completely forgot about all this, almost mistakenly had to take this act for something more, which of course was a stupid manifestation. Just a few hours later, the lady reached the hut. She looks around. The son must have gone crazy to live in such a place instead of the royal palace. The blonde doesn't see any geese. It's logical that the yard is empty. Elaine moved to Coronea, and there was simply no one to look after the animals. The best solution is to look around. Suddenly the heart flutters strangely from the thought that the lady will accidentally meet Rias, whom she misses madly. At first it seemed that it would be good to hide the person away until a solution to the problem was found, but it did not help. The woman would no longer run. The inside of the hut is relatively clean and tidy. The daughter-in-law was not lying when she said that she looked after the place as it required. The son specifically said that he received his father's blessing in order to show himself to him. It was scary to think that this could somehow harm Elaine. There is an open portal on the wall created with the help of powers. Surprisingly, Icon has really made incredible progress in magic in a short time. The man placed a magical seal there, and inside there is everything that he managed to explore before moving back to his mother. The woman was wrong about her son. She thought that he was still an immature child, but he continued to study hard, trying to do the best. If the heroine breaks the seal, she will probably go inside and sort everything out, but by doing so, she will make all the boy's efforts in vain. This time, the hero has the right to make his own decisions. The girl is not going to interfere with him. The book lying on the table attracts attention, and he still did not hide one edition. The blonde accidentally touched the publication from which the pages flew. Only now she realized that this was her daughter-in-law's personal diary. She forgot it at home. Balletti calls the lady again, but she only responds after a minute, absent-mindedly asking what is going on. All the sounds seem to merge into one. After that day, or rather, the conversation that happened on the court, the lady does not feel the best. The words about divorce still ring in her head, which do not allow her to think about anything else. Human feelings are one of the most difficult mysteries. A woman cannot understand whether she has lost her desire to get divorced and why there is such absurdity in her head. Smiling, the little girl assures that everything is fine. Balletti knows very well what is going on in the beauty's head, but it would be good if she wasn't sad. The maid decides to change the subject. She notices that the mistress seems to have even grown a little. She really has become taller now, not like a little child, but better. The only thing that will remain a mystery is what this is connected to at all, because it doesn't seem to work that way. Perhaps the palace had that effect. In any case, it's not that important anymore. The girl smiles, trying to throw off the obsession that will only hinder her. It's definitely not necessary. Even if he has to leave the estate in 3 years, thanks to the people around him, Aratia is experiencing the most pleasant moments of his life. It's better not to be sad, even if it's difficult. For some reason, the little girl no longer has the same depressive state as before. She's trying to live in the present. The conversation with the maid was interrupted by a loud explosion, which sounded very sharply, causing the chandelier to fall, along with pieces of the ceiling, the glass almost hitting 2 people. The brunette is sure that nothing serious happened. They are, after all, in the palace of Coronea when the mistress's mana overflows the space. This happens often. The morning of that day did not start out the best for the heroine. Elaine's diary was never handed over because too much work piled up at once. During this week, the beauty has not seen her daughter-in-law even once. She is no longer sure that the book can be returned, pretending that nothing was written inside. The first page was dedicated to the year 894. Everything happened on March 14th. It was written there that Aishan went on another mission. The little girl was afraid to be left alone. It wasn't that bad because the geese were nearby and the woman was looking after the animals, but she was bothered by the fact that one of them was emitting a strange smell. The girl had already begun to wonder what this was all about, but in time she began to convince herself that it was not worth reading other people's writings. It was indecent. One of the entries, however, attracted more attention. 888, February 5th. The day the girl's father died, her mother became worse, and she was in a fit of emotion when she insulted her daughter. Every time the baby took the medicine, she got worse, but it was all for the good, so there was no choice. The witch immediately suspected something was wrong. The secretary bursts into the room calling the lady. He didn't want to disturb her on her only day off, but this time it was important. The blonde had to see herself from the outside. She looked more like a monster who was so tired that she was ready to tear apart anyone who disturbed her peace. It's about Elaine, and that means it can't wait, and now the woman is angry because Jackton didn't come running to her right away to tell her everything. There are only 2 points that the young man would like to report. A priest has arrived who says that the girl's diagnosis is not serious. The man himself is already waiting in the lady's office. The second piece of news is stranger. An invitation from the royal palace was sent to the maiden. The woman is even more surprised but tries not to scream until she figures everything out. An event in honor of the crown princess's birthday is planned for next month. The letter came personally from Duenalas. She did everything to ensure that it reached the person safe and sound. The witch was simply speechless. From a person like the blonde, this was quite expected, but it was not clear whether she would dare to take such a step. She knows that Elaine will not be able to refuse, so she takes advantage of this. The girl can't touch Coronea, so she calls her sweet daughter-in-law to publicly disgrace her by arranging some kind of dirty trick. It was necessary to scare the princess to death back then in the castle, so that she would not dare to commit a new dirty trick. Now time has already passed. Entering the room, the lady greets Mohan, quietly asking God to keep him. Until the end of the conversation, the man hands over the sheets of paper with the young lady's test results. The expression on her face instantly becomes even more sinister, as it becomes harder to control herself. The medicine Elaine has been taking since childhood is no longer working. Usually, aristocrats give such drugs to their livestock to stop their development. It turns out, if you believe the words, then everything is much worse than it seemed at first. Mohan knows that one wrong word will probably kill him, but he still screams because the drug that the lady took for 6 years has caused her to suffer from growth retardation. Balletti carefully examines the baby, asking again if everything is okay. All the servants are already accustomed to the splashes of magic, but apparently the blonde sees this for the first time. The girl asks to clean up and call the repairmen. The blonde has no right to leave. There is probably glass outside and everything is fine with the owner, so it is better to wait. Blue-eyed thinks otherwise. The woman is clearly not okay. She is a great sorceress and now she is so angry that she cannot control herself. This does not sound good. Balletti still has to admit that the little girl is right. All this time the lady thought that she cared like no one else, but in reality it was not enough. Mohan is in pain. He has used all the possibilities of his divine energy, but he does not want to believe that he will die in such conditions. There is a pogrom around. Only his body is protected by a ball of magic. The woman doesn't even plan to calm down. It seems like the show is just beginning, and all that's left is to try to slowly crawl out of the office. Grasping his hands, the young man asks Saint Lucia to spare his life. And from now on, even if Coronea offers him a whole palace, he will not work for them. Still exhaling slightly, the lady asks the doctor why her own mother gave her daughter some supplements for half her life. If the hero makes a mistake with the answer now, not even a wet spot will remain of him, and this makes him feel uneasy. They demand from him an explanation of the diseases for which the tablets for cattle are prescribed. Hoping for his luck and that the answer is completely correct, the brunette calmly says that as far as he knows there is no such disease. Obviously, even the most famous doctor does not know the name. The reason can only be found out by asking the motives of the person who prescribed the drugs. Jackton, who had been hiding all this time, comes out, and the mistress orders him to immediately go to the Sorin kingdom to meet with his daughter-in-law's mother. Opening the door, the beauty bumped into Elaine, who immediately became even more depressed, noticing the pogrom inside the office. Mohan's still lying on the floor, thanks God for sending a child who will pull him out. He is fine, but it is better to get out. The little girl was probably scared by the whole situation, but despite everything she ran into the room to check on her mother-in-law. The child silently took all the pills that her mother stuffed her with, and with such a fragile little body she endured all her antics, not paying any attention to it. When the mother-in-law is asked what is wrong with her, she turns on the defensive reaction and starts screaming, assuring that she does not need care from other people when she is a great sorceress. Jackton stands up for the blonde for the first time, asking why all the anger is being directed at her. Unfortunately, the man cannot answer this question. Hanging her head, the heroine understands that she made a mistake. The little girl must have been scared when they started shouting at her so suddenly. Elaine should also start avoiding the woman out of fear like everyone else, but instead she takes her hand. It is well known that such a great person does not need care from other people, but Aratia is now her family and wants to worry at least a little. Balletti told everything. There was so much mana that the palace even shook as soon as the hostess became angry. That splash makes it clear that the lady's soul was wounded. Despite the reason why it happened, the whole reason, unfortunately, is not known. The blonde is not going to scold a person who is stronger and older, but since this is not the first time something like this has happened, one can guess that strength does not come easy. As soon as the heroine thinks about what is happening, she feels incredibly sorry for the person who did not deserve to be treated badly. Nothing or no one should upset her mood. Even if the lady is angry, the main thing is to try to be careful so as not to accidentally get hurt. It will be even better if you start sharing your feelings with the people around you. The baby can't repay everything that has been done for her during all this time, but she wants to at least share her excessive love. When a woman lost her temper, broke windows, and immediately replaced them, the frightened people in the palace were primarily concerned about possible victims, but no one cared about the lady. They couldn't even share their thoughts with their own son. After Elaine's arrival, the two only began to pay a little attention to each other. Probably after the words that were just said, the lady is obliged to do everything that the girl asks, she deserves it. Mohan, standing behind and watching, tries not to be surprised the great sorceress who had just been destroying everything around her smiles and gives warm looks. The anger has calmed down a bit, and the woman asks to tell Elaine about the results of the recent examination. From now on, only good news can be expected. The man decides to take the beauty to some secluded place so that they can talk calmly. Mother is not going to go with them. She has some very urgent matters that need to be completed. She will go with the secretary on a mission. Jackton was almost never taken on missions, but it seems that this time there was such a terrible monster somewhere. The woman mumbles something about how she wishes it really was a monster so she could rip its face off. The man tries to pretend everything is fine, and of course they can handle it. The baby knows very well that her mother is a strong person whom she knows, but it is still better to be careful and not try to push forward just to bring victory. The lady looks at Elaine with a warm gaze. It is just unthinkable that such a kind and sweet daughter would be treated so terribly by her own mother. Her soul should not be so badly wounded. For the child, the heroine is just an ordinary mother-in-law, but she doesn't know if she will be able to replace her parents because it will be difficult. It was time to set off opening the passage like a portal. The lady made a fire and called her servant along with her, who should have already prepared himself at least mentally. The younger mistress remains in charge of the maids, so most likely everything will be fine with her. The young man looks back one last time and waves goodbye. The lady sadly watches the duo go. She doesn't remember there being anything so urgent that the woman was forced to leave immediately through the portal. When they first went to the palace, they also used magic. Such movements really save a lot of time. The first time, the beauty thought that it would be scary and stupid, but in the end, she seemed to find herself in a beautiful, colorful dream that was not supposed to end. Icon moved the girl along with him, but asked her not to let go of his hand. Squeezing her palm even tighter, the man pulled his wife closer to him. If the lady moves further in the magical passage, a problem will arise. That day, the blonde learned that it is quite possible to get lost in the magical passage. The lady blushed. Her face changed, and it was impossible to miss this. Baladi began to ask questions about her health. It is worth leaving quickly. This place may be more dangerous than it seems. The woman hopes that someday the trip will be able to be repeated. Everything will be as it should be. As he exits the portal, Jackton asks if the mistress is okay, as it takes an incredible amount of magic to travel from Tania Kingdom to Soren due to the distance. The lady does not want to listen to whining. If the young man is going to whine further, she can always stay where she is. She must see the face of that man as soon as possible. Even though Coronea is a great sorceress, it's unlikely that a portal to such a distance was too easy for her. When it comes to Elaine, she doesn't spare herself. People on the street look around, carefully examining the woman who is walking forward. No one understands how such a beauty ended up in their area. The village is cute, and the atmosphere is not so bad in my head. I can already picture a little girl living there, who even in my imagination looks extremely cute. Everything seems to be fine, but as soon as the heroine remembers that she was bullied here, the mood immediately changes radically. Jackton was sent to look for the house where the daughter-in-law lived. The lady could do with a little bit of Elaine's kindness. The first people they met seemed to understand what the sorceress's secretary was asking about. She was talking about a woman who had married off her daughter and was now living alone. Someone behind was surprised the man thought everything was fine, but wondered why the baby had stopped appearing. The girl had always been calm and polite with strangers and others. The villagers believe that the beauty is probably suffering while living with her new family, and she wants to return home. There is no more strength to listen to the nonsense, so the witch comes forward to say that Elaine married into an outrageously rich family and now lives in wealth and luxury. Instead of answering the question of who this woman is, the secretary again asks where Baroness Aratia's house is. In just 5 minutes, the duo arrived at the estate, which looks better than all the houses they saw on the way here. This is where Elaine spent her childhood. Approaching the door, Jackton assumes that they expect him to break down the door, but the lady on the contrary asks him to wait first. She must see the shameless woman herself. after knocking the door opened, and a brunette appeared with a displeased expression on her face. It was impossible not to notice that she and her daughter were not alike at all. Unfortunately, this is the truth as it is. The blonde steps forward, introducing herself as the matchmaker. She looks too gorgeous to be the mother of that ragamuffin, so the logical chain does not form in my head. Some puny boy said that he was going to marry the Baroness. Apparently, he sold her to this man and ran away. If the two showed up to demand money, this will not happen. The woman tried to slam the door because she realized she didn't need this conversation anymore, but was shocked when she saw one head stop the obstacle by breaking the wall. They haven't even finished talking with the matchmaker yet, so there's no point in leaving nodding, so that the lady can finally take her face back. The brunette agrees to talk. As the sorceress walks inside the estate, Aratia examines the broken door. It is strange that the man did not have a scratch after such a collision. Jackton comes next and introduces himself. He is a secretary, so he couldn't help but follow his mistress. The woman is Elaine's mother-in-law, so she is also not against talking, but it can be said in advance that she is almost hostile. The two came from the Tanya Empire to meet the Baroness, blinked her eyes in surprise. She didn't think that anyone in their right mind would try to overcome such a long and difficult path. Judging by her clothes, the sorceress is clearly not from an ordinary family. Jewelry doesn't even count because it's all made of gold and diamonds. Aratia's mother asks about the title. Entering the room before sitting on the sofa, the lady introduces herself as an ordinary commoner. She has no words, tea is not even offered, and besides this, the maid sweeps spinning around. The brunette wants to know why the guests have come to visit her. She looks bored or worried about what rumors might start if people without a title linger in the estate. Elaine's mother continues to show off her half-dead status, and on top of all this looks down on Coronea. Jackton is the first to start boiling, but the mistress asks him to calm down. The blonde is also not eager to talk for too long. She needs to ask a few questions about her daughter-in-law. The matchmaker assumes that the little girl is not doing her housework well or has shown a lousy character. There are even more questions about the biological mother, because the family would not treat the child like that. The sorceress, of course, is also not the best mother for Eichen, but she simply cannot imagine such a thing. Elaine is a sweet and kind soul. They have not lived together for very long, but this period of time was more than enough to understand what kind of person she is. Initially, the conversation was supposed to be only about strategy, but still the heroine is obliged to speak out. Coronea's family is not so poor as to force the daughter-in-law to do housework. As you can see, the presence of maids in the Aratia estate did not prevent him from forcing his daughter to do things as if she were some commoner. That boy who introduced himself as the blonde's future husband looked inferior, but apparently this lady lives better since Elaine ended up in a good family. The parents are entitled to at least one piece of gold. A daughter, even if she leaves her native estate, is obliged to help those people she loves. The witch is surprised by the fact that the girl, despite everything, was able to grow up good in such a terrible environment. There is no more innocent and kind soul than Aratia. The beauty endured insults without words, but her mother believes that it was all her fault. If the brat had been born a boy, they would have had a title long ago. Hearing these words, the lady jumps up in surprise. If everything had happened the other way around, the little girl would never have become her daughter-in-law. The story would have ended before it began. If it were up to the beauty, she would have smeared her across the wall long ago, but it seems that it doesn't work that way. You have to endure until the very end. Based on the words, this is still the man's biological daughter, so it's time to try to find out something interesting. The hostess orders Jackton to get a jar of medicine, which ends up in his hands. The lady had been taking medications until recently and said that her mother personally gave her a new bottle every month and made her not miss a single dose. According to the results of the priest's examination, it turned out that the side effect would be the cessation of growth and the body as a whole. This time the Baroness would not be able to get out of the water dry. Those who have come to the estate know all the moves and they understand what they are referring to. There are clans where little girls are quietly bought out as servants and more. The brunette never planned anything terrible. She wanted to send her daughter as a priestess to some sect. Jackton does not see the connection between a small body and the plan. The woman herself does not know the details, since for her it was all too complicated an adventure. On the day of the funeral, some priest approached her and offered her pills. That day was remembered for a long time because it brought with it only horror. All her life she lived as an aristocrat, but now, in addition to the fact that she was left a widow, her title was also taken away. At the moment when the lady was trying to find a way out of the situation, a man in a hood appeared who suggested that a difficult period of life had come. The young man asked Elaine to trust the organization he runs and asked her to fulfill some conditions that would help them reach a new level. The church wants to raise shamans and priestesses on the day X. The girl will be taken by a trusted person, after which he will give more money than now. At the moment there was not much gold in the bag, but more than enough. 10 times that is 100 coins, which would be enough money to marry a widowed nobleman and make that her dowry. If the person is telling the truth, it would be nice to get some compensation for the pain that was already caused by just the birth of the baby. The youngest is not worth the gold that was given to the lady, but if she regularly takes the medicine that the man will give, everything is possible. By the age of 16, the child should have remained in her 10-year-old form. Everything was simple. The girl deliberately gave her little food and fed her these medicines, but her development not only did not stop, but on the contrary, she continued to grow further. In the end, the character who asked for the sale simply broke his promise and walked away without considering it necessary to return anything. There was a great chance to restore her lost noble life, but because of the trash, the woman missed her last chance. The guests had never heard of an organization of this kind. Surely those people wanted to get not a priestess, but a ready-made victim for the ritual. Now there is no problem, since the girl ended up in a rich family anyway. Now the priorities are different, because the baby, on the contrary, must repay her mother for raising her no matter what a rundown family it is. But money is still needed. The lady's word hung on the floor for some reason. A terrible headache suddenly appeared, which is not going to stop, but only gets worse. Jessie was ordered to bring the pills while the matchmaker managed to jump up and come closer, making a threatening expression on her face. Elaine no longer bears the surname Aratia, so the woman has no right to pronounce her daughter-in-law's name with her filthy mouth in such an ugly manner. The brunette is in no position to compete with the witch, and that's the end of the conversation. Soon everyone will find out which family is protecting the beauty. Next time, a little girl will come who will bring with her payment for the fact that her mother raised her. If she begs for forgiveness on her knees, she will also receive not 10 gold but a whole 10,000. Jackton was also about to leave because the hostess was calling him, and right next to the door a man smiled ominously, promising that he would keep an eye on the lady. The blonde looks down on you while remaining the one who speaks the truth in this sense, but with the money she offers you can buy a whole territory. The mistress takes out her anger on the first servant she comes across. She does not understand where Jessie, who was ordered to bring a headache pill, has gone. The girl with dark hair was the one who brought the tray with her. Officially, the other person was sick, so they sent a new one to replace her. It's better to announce changes in advance, but the Baroness no longer has the strength to scream, so she calms down. Coming out into the corridor, the lady smiles. She could not have imagined that in this place she would meet a great sorceress. After all, the journey from a distant place was not in vain. Jessie was given a bowel cleanse in her water, and even cried when she was offered a replacement job which was like hard labor. The woman listened from a distance, but was sure that her daughter-in-law would become Kinesis Coronea's weak point. For the information, the lady will probably receive a tidy sum. She sits down to write the results of her investigation. Coronea is ready to become a great offering, as she has been taking medicine regularly since ancient times, and up until now. Jackton was tasked with finding out more about the pagan sect. There were bound to be other victims or priestesses there. Those people didn't just need a girl, but it's unclear why they had to give pills to stop her development. Memories of how there was fire all around and people were trying to run away in all directions come back to life in my head. The grandmother does not come to her senses because now she belongs to God. Her soul has returned back to another world. When the great devil attacked the village where the witch lived, she was also about 10 years old, and that pain cannot be forgotten to this day. The lady grabs her head. Overall, she is fine, but still something is bothering her, and this makes her feel even more uneasy. Elaine can't be involved with those people. It can't happen, otherwise she'll be in danger. Coronea's senses are heightened several times compared to ordinary characters, according to the lady. This is just a coincidence. Jackton will find out who those were who visited Josephine 6 years ago. As soon as it becomes known, not even a wet spot will remain of them. The lady asks the doctor if she can listen to the recommendations next time she does not feel bad. It's time to start repairing and cleaning, but Mother is not here. She went somewhere and has not returned yet. The little girl is forced to take control to find out how badly the palace was damaged. The guy offers to go together. If there are wounded, Mohan will immediately help. The lady is met by servants who did not expect to see her. The butler offers to take the beauty to her room, but everyone is working so hard that she cannot stand aside. Before this, everyone dealt with problems on their own, and in this way, the hero does not try to insult. As the girl heard, the mother was very angry, and therefore too many things were damaged. Surely some issues will be difficult to solve on your own, so help in any case will not hurt. To begin with, it is simply necessary to find out the state of the Coronian palace and understand what to do next. Mohan follows his patient down the corridor, his eyes catching sight of paintings by famous artists. There are antiques from a vanished kingdom near the wall. This place simply fascinates the man. For some reason, the healer did not think that the great sorceress had such refined taste. She did not seem like that kind of person. The kitchen suffered the most, but it is unclear how exactly, since this room is the farthest from the office. Mohan's personal opinion is that the kitchen is the farthest away from the young lady's room. Even when the woman was angry, she apparently wanted to protect the girl, and instinctively did just that, making the right choice. Mother is always attentive and kind, and this makes my heart feel a little warmer than before. The blonde exhales and asks what the woman got angry about in the first place. Something had its effect. The mother-in-law treats the beauty much better than her own mother. Telling her the truth would be an incredible blow. The cook runs into the kitchen, asking how the lady ended up there, and promises that he will cook something now. Recently, a man got hold of a recipe for trendy sandwiches. He doesn't have all the ingredients, but even so, it will be delicious. Heltonson stopped. A lady came to check the condition of the kitchen. It seems the food storage was also affected. All the food will have to be thrown out. The food was burnt by the fire, and small pieces of glass got right inside. The palace has trade suppliers who are located on Tarshia Street in the capital, where the girl has already been to boutiques. Once an order is placed, ingredients received through the portal can be sent to the kitchen for preparation. If you take care of the warehouse and the kitchen, it will take a lot of time, but if you involve all the workers, it would be easier. Louis forgot one thing. The workers who were injured also need to rest and recover before doing anything. The first thing you will need to do is make a list of products and then order them through the magic portal. Kitchen workers are entitled to rest today, and the work will be distributed among those who were not injured. Cooking food will also take time, but Louis must bring something suitable for the servants. There should be enough for everyone. The lady treats her subjects well, so she informs them, and they thank her for it again and again. Mohan agrees that it is difficult to do everything the girl has planned, but she did it with flying colors. No one could even think that the girl would be such a strong personality. It was not for nothing that Eltalark liked her. The doctor did a great job. The little girl promises that she will give payment for each patient as soon as Mother arrives. The young man was not doing the treatment for the money, but the lady cannot help but pay him. She always behaves according to the rules. Paying a fair price for saving lives will be the only right way out of this situation. Only in this way will it be possible to continue to develop your skills. A priest has the right to demand even higher payment for his work. This would be the right move. Usually when Mohan gets money, everyone looks at him askance. Now he even envies the palace workers. If a man could serve a girl, he would immediately leave his work and go to her. A sincere man, he would like to get a job in the palace and then open a hospital to help the poor. The girl lights up with joy even more. She believes that this can be considered more than noble. A large sum is needed to achieve this goal, and if Korinia helps, it will be quite achievable. If you calculate the ideal plan and do everything properly, the construction will take only 3 years. Obtaining a license takes time. The lady could well become a partner of the priest. The girl doesn't know what to say. After this time, she will divorce Icon and will no longer belong to the family. The blonde is telling the truth. She would gladly accept the offer, but in 3 years, she will no longer be in this palace. Blue Eyes only speaks because she trusts. In fact, she is going to leave the place soon. The brunette doesn't need any further explanation to understand that the couple will divorce after the deadline. The young man apologizes. He didn't know the details and made the burdensome offer by accident. Nothing terrible happened, but it's a pity that the beauty won't be able to provide financial assistance even if she wanted to. If the lady is so worried about it, there is no point in it. The man is treating many aristocrats and will find someone. Now everything is not so simple, but as soon as El Telarch becomes a duke, he promised to help with everything needed. Since the lady would get a divorce, nothing bad would happen if the friend found out the news he was clearly interested in her. If they get married in the future, they might be a good, even great couple for each other. Lasterin might be against it, but Elaine is the one who melted even Kinesis's heart, so she can handle it even here. A friend brought Her Highness a piece of paper with information. Unfortunately, she was unable to get too much. It says about Cahandel, a graduate of the Academy who is a wizard in the Empire. Unfortunately, the man is so secretive that finding out even a drop of information is quite a quest, but you can't give up. The brunette had already sent out all the invitations to the event. She had sent them 4 days ago. Surely the Coronea family has already received the letter that was originally intended for them. A daughter-in-law of this kind will wear an expensive dress paid for by her mother-in-law in order to appear in public. Compared to what a princess would wear, it's nothing, because on this day, a woman will shine brighter than anyone else. This ball will be the first one that the beauty will participate in after the coronation, and there will be applause of delight everywhere. The girl will deliberately force the main character to come up on stage and show everyone how pathetic she looks. People will most likely react violently because they cannot help but be shocked by such a sight. If Cahandel was in the room, he would realize that Elaine was too pathetic to be called his wife and lover. What has already been invented is clearly not enough, so it remains to be seen what the blonde's weak point is. Another friend came running who fished out new rumors that could put Coronea in an awkward position. They say that girls from poor families were stuffed with some kind of pills and prepared for the offering having been bought in advance. It turns out that the neighbors of such people were the daughter-in-law of Kinesis, who also had to go to the sect to learn her destiny. The group of fanatics are called Shuriate. They serve an unholy god as if it were an offering, but for some reason there are only small children there. The blonde smiles maniacally. She likes the fact that the beauty must be someone in this group. Nodding, the red-haired girl agrees and also tries to smile. It's better not to provoke so as not to get into trouble. What's important is not the truth, but what the princess wants to hear. There's something very strange mixed in there. The woman wanted to bring at least one girl to find out information, but the location of none of them is known. The heroine doesn't need all this. The main thing is to spread rumors, and her old friend Cecirel will help her with this, and she won't let her down. It shouldn't matter who is making fun of whom, because the lady has long since gotten into the same boat with her friend. The main thing is that she is not her target. This time the damage to the castle was great, and it would seem that all this should take a fair amount of time. This time the servants quickly dealt with everything. The younger mistress provided incredible help, doing everything for others. The maiden decided to personally inspect the estate-discovered problems and gave orders as needed. The most important thing is that the beauty, first of all, thought about the health and condition of the workers who were also feeling ill. The butler is getting ready to leave. He tried his best, so he will definitely get his bonus. This is the first time Kinesis has heard such praise from Louis, and Elaine has outdone herself by deciding that she needs to help the others. As soon as the image of his mother comes into his head, Aratea again experiences a fit of anger. The baby's physical and mental state is fine. Even if compared to Coronea, it's worth stopping thinking of her as a weak child. First, the diary should be returned. The daughter-in-law is not sleeping yet. Lately, she has been constantly reading books until the night. Since the lady spends all her time in the library, she could find a tutor who would help her with her studies. Jackton promises to look into the matter and even suggests the candidacy of that professor from the academy, which is already excellent. A man can quit his job because the castle will pay him 3 times his salary. The secretary promises that he will do everything in the best possible way and will try to distribute the announcement about the search for workers quite quickly. The young man also found out the name of the pagan group, but something worries him. He would like to leave his post for a few days to find out everything. It's not someone else but Jackton himself, so everything will be fine. The lady allows him to leave. The blonde is also going to do her own thing, but the first thing she will do is go and give the diary to the girl. The beauty recalls the past times when she wondered who her child looked like most, because the baby was born with a great magical aura. He slept very lightly and woke up as soon as he heard something. In those days, mother was even more busy with work, so she came home only at dawn. A lady cannot even criticize the cruelty of others with matter, because in reality, she is no different. Then it seemed that destroying monsters was the most reliable way to protect herself. If the girl tried now, it was already too late. Perhaps time doesn't matter anyway. Elaine should have some good advice to give. As she opens the door, the woman freezes because she collides with a maid coming out into the corridor. A little earlier, the little girl was talking about her height, and she really has managed to grow a little. The girl seems to have remained the same inside but has changed a lot on the outside. Now she will have to change her entire wardrobe. For some reason, the growth started unexpectedly. Most likely, it's all because of Mohan. After he came to the palace, she changed. Suddenly, the thought of medicine comes to mind. The lady has not taken it lately. The girl had previously realized that she was not growing because of the drugs, but she simply refused to believe it until the very end. The lady drooped, remembering her mother's screams, so she went to sit on the bed and look at the floor. The woman is a little tired, and now she feels sleepy. Today she will rest a little earlier and go to bed. It is not surprising that sleep came by itself, because the beauty ate well she cannot do without food. The lady asks Ballet why she is leaving the room. Only now the young lady has just fallen asleep. The baby is not sick. She eats well and does not even skip snacks before bed and in the morning before meals. There is no need to wake her up to see her since the beauty is sleeping. It means her body needs rest. It seems that the woman has remained the same. Even in childhood, the mistress of the maids chatted about how his mother was not interested in him at all. Balletti also stood up for the lady at that time, who despite working until dawn, always visited the child first. The maid had no intention of reporting, but simply warned, since the maids would not be a problem for the mistress. The woman is not as cold as she seems at first glance. She usually has no time to spend time, but she still cares. The girl noticed that the young gentleman was not sleeping. He apparently heard everything, so it would not be possible to leave things as they were. The brunette tried to explain that a man is treasured, which is why his mother stands and silently watches him sleep every time. The guy had known about what was happening for a long time, but each time she pretended not to suspect anything, as if it was not a problem. Kansas is a very proud man, so the secret will have to be hidden until the last moment. In fact, the situation is sad, but the heroine cannot allow herself to intervene. This is absolutely not what she should do. Today, the situation is similar again, but there is a difference. Since Elaine arrived, the woman has gradually begun to change. There were many more monsters in the mountains than the wizard had originally expected, and the hunt took much longer. Finally, the hero arrived at the cave which he had been looking for more than once. In fact, it was too far away. The traces still remained, and so now the sensations inside him had changed again. In front of him were the traces of the last battle between his parents and the demon. To remove the curse from his father, the boy often came to this place to understand the aura, but then he stopped. The woman always refused to go, and for the same reason ignored the traces that were left in the heiress's palace. It is strange that the monster, since he wanted to take revenge on the witch, did not go to her but to the royal chambers. Perhaps someone from the palace was involved in this matter, so they had a connection, but all the details are yet to be found out. Elaine woke up. She was in the estate, but now she is sitting quietly on the rocks around which there is a lot of lava. The girl thought that she could get rid of the one who was chasing her, but even here he caught up with her. The voice was familiar. He had definitely heard it before. Of course, it was he who tortured the little girl in almost every nightmare. The spirit always ordered to sacrifice one's life, and the child understandably was scared, running to his mother to ask for help. The woman never took nightmares kindly and screamed at the girl to go back to her room and not stick her head out. The blonde was bothering her over trifles, preventing her mother from sleeping. She already had insomnia, so such antics did not help. The Baroness never hugged her daughter. She didn't care, the demon whispered again. Even if the victim screamed in fear, nothing would change. The current situation is different from the past. The maiden is confident that this time she will not be mired in the abyss of darkness. The beauty is no longer alone, and so gathering courage, she declares that she is no longer afraid of that very spirit. The darkness wanted to make Elaine his bride if she survived, but it didn't work out. The course of events changed. The girl will no longer be distinguished from the other victims. She will be just food which has no right to a voice or a choice. Because of the terrible things that are happening, the little girl cannot restrain herself and screams, thereby trying to break through her consciousness. The young man thought he heard something, but a second later he was trying again not to be distracted from his work. There are too many thoughts in her head. The heiress could have deliberately destroyed the barrier in order to provoke Coronea. The version has a place to be, but it is not clear how she managed to contact the demon who was long forgotten. The creature had long been sealed, but the only important thing was that it had begun to function again. Now time has sped up and you need to be prepared for any outcome of events, regardless of what it will be. You also need to hurry with the divorce. Returning to the castle, the blonde looks at his wife's window. She's probably already asleep. He'll only have to go in the morning. At that very moment, a hoarse voice is heard calling Eichen by name. The little girl blindly moves her hands in the air. The beauty has a fever, and to cool her down, the young man makes his hand cold and puts it to her forehead. Now that Elaine has come to her senses, she smiles, even laughing a little at the fact that her hands are too cold. Explaining his trip, the husband invites the girl to get up, and so that it won't be difficult for her, offers her his palm. The hero noticed something else. It wouldn't hurt for his friend to change her clothes. She still has time before bed. The horrors were so realistic that the little girl even started sweating while spinning. Getting up on her own, the heroine promises that she will return soon. Her cheeks are red. She has managed to grow several times. A week ago, Aratia was still a baby. It's probably not normal for a person to grow so quickly. The blonde had already managed to change her clothes and returned to ask what was going on. The hero was still red, as if he was sick. The woman has changed so much that perhaps that priest was not a doctor, but a charlatan. We have to check all possible options. Mohan did provide assistance. The lady is healthy, and what's more, her problem with physical development was solved. Of course, it was known that the people in the temple were engaged in the treatment, but such a result greatly impresses the mind. Eichen has an ugly reaction. Sadly lowering his eyes, the lady asks him to forget what she said he was inattentive before. The man noticed the changes as soon as he entered the room, which is not surprising because now the lady has become very beautiful. Elaine has grown up, become feminine, and it seems that now every passerby on the street will look at her. Previously, the blonde was mediocre, which her husband disagrees with. He always considered her a beauty. The joy is reflected on her face. Elaine will no longer be treated like a little sister or some kind of child. The little girl wanted to be treated differently, and now that she got what she wanted, she can rejoice. Aratea always looked positive and bright, so there was no thought that she had complexes. It was necessary to tell her about her beauty earlier. Once the demon has started to act, it will be unsafe for Coronea to be in the castle. She must go to safety. The hero does not regret marrying the girl in any way, but they will need to speed up the divorce. Elaine reaches her hands towards her lover's clothes, making him blush once again. There are traces of blood on the robe, and the wound on the arm is immediately noticeable. Something needs to be done urgently. Elaine hurried to get a first aid kit to treat his wound. The man was a mage. He could heal himself. When the lady heard that her husband did not need her help, her gaze became sad again, as if she had been betrayed. The wound is not as bad as it looks, but the girl still asks to take a look. She is worried and wants to make sure. Before doing anything, the hero lights up the light magic so that it is not so dark in the room. The power that the young man uses is quite amazing. For some reason, it is more fascinating than usual. Something is hidden inside. There is a side to him that is as unpredictable as the man himself. Eichen appears to be terribly strong and arrogant. Despite his character, the guy has a clumsy side that is different from his image. In fact, a magician is even capable of creating something so wonderful without much expenditure of energy. Perhaps Coronea doesn't remember, but from the first days of their acquaintance, she was already saying something similar, constantly emphasizing it. Everyone around was talking about a beautiful little girl with good manners. The young man had no idea who she was, but she was obviously well known in this area. The kindness of a beauty can melt any ice. There is no point in this. The boy's father fought in the snowy mountains, and a curse fell on him. Even though my mother defended the empire, everyone started calling her the Snow Witch. There is no point in being nice and kind when you can't defend yourself. If you don't become cold towards others, you won't achieve anything in life. Today, the merchant came out early and placed his assortment on the counter, and he was immediately met by that same girl. As she stroked the sheet that could hide from the winter snowstorm, Aratia noted that she wouldn't be surprised if the person who created it was just as soft and reliable. In an instant, without even noticing it, the lady managed to touch the wizard's soul and warm him in her arms, just as she was doing now in the castle. The wound on his hand has been there for a long time. The guy was badly hurt, but he should have healed even earlier. Blue Eyes asks not to use healing magic. It will take longer, but the cut can be healed with time. The blonde doesn't think it's right to bother to take care of his wound. That's the whole problem. It's easier to use strength. Every time the hero starts acting carelessly again and gets cuts and bruises again, he is obliged to treat himself better. Allowing the skin to heal naturally will help the young man appreciate himself more. It is not necessary to listen to your wife, but speaking as a family member, the girl assures that you need to do the right thing. There is confusion in my head for the first time a man is treated with such warmth, although he did nothing, behaved like a worthless person. The blonde man got married for his own purposes and deceived such an innocent soul they didn't even discuss the divorce beforehand. Their actions were one worse than the other. Realizing that he won't be able to endure it any longer, the hero insistently asks not to do this anymore and to do everything more carefully. As my wife asks, the wound will heal on its own with the help of medication and careful handling. Elaine watches intently and then, no longer able to hold back, begins to cry, which sends her friend into a stupor. Tears flow only from joy. Aratia did not think that she was considered a valuable person, and therefore this was unexpected. The girl goes to bed. They both need to rest to feel better in the morning. The wizard asks to monitor how his beloved falls asleep to understand whether she is having a nightmare. He behaves like a father. Something still worries the girl. She would like to know what Aichen wanted to find so much that he suffered so much. Until now, the lady thought that she was meddling in something that was none of her business, but in the end she was very worried, so she decided to find out. The connection is with the marriage at 3 years, and with the curse of the Coronea family there is no point in telling the details yet. The young man had never shared with anyone what was going on in his soul before. Probably even his mother had never told anyone. The girl is not even angry that she did not receive details. She sees that the topic is quite painful and does not want to press. Everything will be fine, and if you suddenly need help, the beauty is always ready to help. Tomorrow, Kahendel will be home. The couple can go for a walk, but for now both will go to bed. The promised 3 years of marriage are important. You need to put aside all feelings so as not to become attached to someone you can't be with. Elaine sees the same thing again. A strange monster haunts her, but the light energy drives away the dark one. The weather was fine in the morning, but the little girl was unable to even get out of bed to go outside. It won't be possible to go for a walk. The condition is only getting worse, and even healing magic won't help here. Now the girl is in the growth stage, in the phase when the female body usually grows. The man still didn't understand what kind of illness he had, so to keep him out of the way, the servants dragged him into the corridor. Jackton, standing outside, also noticed that the young man was not at all smart. He spoke as if he knew more. The secretary has absolutely no time to try to explain, as he urgently needs to see the lady. The blonde was sent to the library, where he would be required to check out the 3rd book at the window. The girl doesn't have to worry anymore. The guy drove her husband away so that he could learn a little about female physiology at the same time. Ballet never leaves the woman's room, hovering around to get a cool compress for her stomach. The blonde was constantly worried that her menstrual period was late, but somehow she still wasn't happy. Elaine has been given a lot of different profiles to check out so she can choose the best tutor. The sheets even contain the names of professors who teach at the academy. Each one was ready to apply for the vacancy. One of the questionnaires has a familiar photograph pasted on it. It's Duke El Telarch, who also teaches in Tanya. The little girl would like to choose a friend, but he is most likely too busy to try to study. In fact, the beauty is a little worried about her husband. She hopes that he is not offended. The lady is worried about the wrong person, but at least she promises that she will think about choosing a tutor. Yesterday evening, Kinesis returned. The girl fell asleep early, so she couldn't even meet with her. Today, 2 people can eat at the same table, but for now, all that's left is to rest a little. Elaine was left in the room. Ballet went to get new towels to ease the pain in her lower back and stomach. El Telarch listens attentively to his friend, but freezes in surprise when divorce is mentioned. The reason is unknown, but the lady said that she plans to be free again in 3 years. Mohan doesn't know why he told the truth. Although he promised to keep his mouth shut, he knows that the Lord will not spread rumors. The young man will remain silent for the sake of his friend's honor. Last time everything was fine between her and Kahandel. It's strange that a decision was made to get a divorce. The couple appears to have an arranged marriage, which makes sense given Icon's selfish nature, and they didn't even have rings. One thing is clear, there are still 3 years left, so there is no need to act hastily. The blonde has plenty of time to think. The young man does not want to sit idle and goes to get a gift. Something gentle and sweet would suit the beauty. To get closer and establish friendly relations, it is worth trying hard. It will take months. Sorel met the Duke in this salon. She immediately smiles, starting to giggle stupidly like a fan. Eltalark did not allow himself to be called by name in response, so he is about to leave. Of course, he is stopped at the last moment. Apparently, the princess did not inform him, but her brother would be obliged to accompany that very girl from Corania to the banquet. The heiress doesn't like the girl very much, so the escort will be entrusted to a normal option. Although there are some bad rumors about Elaine, the princess certainly got the information she needed. Still, the first dance at the banquet will be danced together. This is something worth doing as soon as they get there. Eltalark lowers his voice and asks about those very unpleasant rumors that are spreading. The beauty pretends to be busy and runs away. Duenalas obviously asked her to deliver the news in a not-so-good light. A salesman approaches the man and promises to get the lily-of-the-valley brooch that the customer has chosen from the display case. Instead of wrapping the gift, it should be sent by magic to the Orishazrias. Magical mail is faster but more expensive. Finishing his shopping, the blonde goes outside. He is obliged to find out about those very dirty rumors in order to help his friend. Professor Lasteran was a little late for the meeting. He had personal matters to attend to. The young man has no desperate desire to take the title since everything has already been decided. All that remains is to rest and not worry. The hero smiles, thereby irritating the interlocutor who is simply openly ignored. The man mentions a secret document that Lasteran doesn't know about. He's not joking, he's telling the truth. All the professors received a letter from the Corinian Palace. They want to hire a tutor, but they will have to quit their jobs as teachers. The pay at the estate would be excellent, so the hero was thinking about applying, but recently they announced that they were suspending applications. They say that the witch's daughter-in-law has fallen seriously ill, so nothing will happen for the next week. The maids were running around getting more towels for the blood. The sorceress came running immediately to check on the girl. Kahandel remains silent as his mother tries to get at least a drop of information out of him. The guy doesn't know anything. Healing magic doesn't work and the bleeding doesn't stop even when they try to help. The woman tries not to lose control. It is forbidden. Baletti meets the lady outside in the corridor. Elaine shouldn't be disturbed by her sad appearance, but the way she lies unconscious is unsettling. The girl reaches out to the blonde. She assumes that her mother is tired after work, but she is glad that she came anyway. Leaving the room, the woman asks what happened. Aretius's daughter has started her menstrual period. At first, the maid thought that the weakness was due to these days, but the girl lost consciousness and then woke up, and in the morning, the blood flowed almost without stopping. Even though it is sudden, the condition is getting worse. The witch has no right to leave the baby to suffer. Hands are raised into the air, and a magic circle is created to check the internal organs. This kind of magic can cure even the most terrible things, but for some reason, nothing works on the blonde. Now, in all seriousness, one can worry. Addressing those gathered, the woman orders that a priest be called. Candle, who was already on the edge, completely stopped thinking. He understands that now anything can happen. Jackton climbed the mountain. He climbed such heights without difficulty and without magic, but exploring every corner, he got tired. This place should be the main building of the Shuriate group which was discovered, but for some reason there is nothing around. It's a pity that it turned out this way. The lady unintentionally got involved with people from a sect who certainly don't wish her well. At that moment, something irreparable happened. The brunette tripped and fell down the cliff. Mohan arrived as soon as he could. He doesn't know what happened, but he was pulled out in the middle of prayer. The atmosphere is not the same as last time. The dark colors seem to thicken more and more with each passing second. Things are much worse around here than before. When the sorceress gets angry, Kahendel attracts attention. As they said, this man looks very serious and angry. It's strange that he came The lady said that she would get a divorce in 3 years, but the husband's expression only showed concern for his wife. The priest is a little late, but he is immediately taken inside the room. He wants to know what is going on. The witch screams from the doorway, begging to cure Elaine before starting the treatment you need to check the condition. Touching his hand with divine power, the guy recoils. They will have to talk in private. Sitting down at the table, the girl menacingly asks what happened. The reason is related to the girl's rapid growth. The exact cause is a relapse of development, which is accompanied by fever, bleeding, and severe pain. The sorceress had already learned that the very medicine had arrived from Shuriate, and they had given the jar to the Baroness. Jackton, who went to find out more details, still hasn't returned. There are no options left. The medicines were most likely cursed, and Josephine herself ruined her daughter's entire life. The priest has no idea what is going on, but knowing won't make things any easier for the lady. If even the magic of the great kinesis did not help, then no medicine or priest will be able to correct the situation. The most famous doctor of the empire is obliged to make a verdict and then find solutions to the situation. Elaine must deal with the remaining consequences on her own now. All that remains is to sit and wait. If suddenly the girl fails to overcome herself, they will pray for her in the temple of Tanya. The best healer in the entire empire, with his strength and the magic of a great sorceress, simultaneously tried to provide assistance. Even after a week, Aratia showed no signs of improvement. Her eyes did not open. Kehendall's decision to marry the baby may have been a selfish one. More than anything, the boy wanted to get his friend out of the place that was making her suffer. He wanted the girl to find freedom, not suffering. If Elaine gets better, her husband will definitely let her leave the palace. A familiar voice was heard. Jackton had finally returned home, but in the state of a broken branch. There is confidence that Elaine will soon get better because she is the one who even coped with the role of the great sorceress's daughter-in-law. That time, the servant wanted to talk to the master. He did not have any more information, but he had something to tell. There is something that is unknown, even to the heroine herself. It is connected with the medicine she was taking. It's hard to believe, but the pills were to stop development. Everyone was shocked when they first found out. To check everything, the sorceress went to the estate in Soren. Josephine turned out to be quite the selfish one. The brunette thanks him for taking the girl to Tanya, but at that moment, he is grabbed by the throat, asking if the woman was killed. Jokes aside, we are talking about the girl's mother, but the secretary was also almost drowned out by pure accident. These are all rhetorical questions. The girl is probably no longer alive. Shaking his head, the interlocutor denies. The mistress does not kill thoughtlessly, so if a person is not a monster, she will not even touch him. Anyway, Mrs. Elaine's mother is also important, despite everything she did in the past. Now the young man wants to know why the blonde is so worried about his wife. Jackton doesn't need to find out anything. He can already see it from the facial expression. The man had just returned from searching for shelter in Shuriate, and during his actions he fell from the mountain. Because of everything, the strength was almost exhausted, and it seemed that this was the end. The guy fell into a secret space. There was a special staircase in that place that led straight down to the base site, and there was a huge black horn on the door. The Shuriat worship Harubid the Lord searched for so long and could not find his traces. Now the spirit itself has surfaced. The brunette asks to share what he managed to find out. It is not worth taking the burden of the family curse on your shoulders. Jackton is being shut up. Less talk would be better. It is never clear how and who can observe. If a great demon is watching Kehendall, it could be the reason for the unruly teenager's behavior. Now is the time to ask the gentleman to help enter inside the Shuriate base. The secretary's strength alone will not be enough. Since it concerns Elaine, it's better to check it personally. The recovery is gradual anyway. They will have time to return. The witch, as usual, sits next to her daughter-in-law's bed, gently stroking her hand. Everything will definitely be fine. Aichin had never been so sick, and when trouble happened, he used healing magic. Oddly enough, she feels sad at heart. The hostess asks Belletti to go and rest. She has already done enough. Tonight is filled with magical power. Kinesis is going to cast a stronger healing spell. The woman has already lost many loved ones, in particular, in the place where she grew up in that very village. The people in that place believed in Ilukaya, which was specially created for believers, and never received help from God. Everything turned upside down. Because of the demon that suddenly appeared, Coronea survived alone and lost her faith that day. Today, all actions are forgiven. What the lady asks is to save the sweet child. A magical item appears in his hands, which is summoned using powers the first time this has happened since Harubidu was sealed. Elaine is suffering, but very soon her condition should improve at least a little. The girl will be helped, this is the witch's wish, but she must also try to do so in order to recover. It's been a while since the full potential was used. Nosebleeds started. Looking back in time, all the battles were fought for just one person who had special importance. The mistress should not die while trying to help her daughter-in-law. She is a strong person and can go through everything. The gentleman decided to go inside first as soon as the light that was spreading around died down and faded. Mom lies unconscious on the bed with her head. Her hands are incredibly cold, but her breathing is just as measured. The lady did her job. However, bringing herself to exhaustion, the bleeding stopped, and a blush began to appear on Elaine's cheeks. The man smiles with joy. Balletti will remain in the room to observe the lady's insistence. The rest are obliged to leave. The secretary wants to accompany Kinesis since he hasn't seen her for a long time, but her son does it. Mohan goes to his office in the temple. He thinks about Arathea, hoping that she will wake up soon. It is better to visit the estate in the near future. Inside the office is Elaine's husband. The boy was expecting this meeting and therefore arrived early. Today the blonde's face looks better than usual. It seems the lady is slowly starting to get the hang of it. The temperature is still there, but the beauty's life is not in danger. Everything will be fine now. The priest is bustling about getting ready to go visit his girlfriend, but he is stopped. The man has come on another matter. The conversation turns again to the medicine that was being researched. The blue-eyed man needs a more precise composition. The incredible pressure causes the brunette to fall to the ground, a situation similar to when the great Kinesis got angry. Since now almost the same thing is starting, the man begs not to start the same thing. It would seem that it would be difficult for a man to understand medical language, but he reads everything written without stopping and with great interest. While away recently, the priest ran into a friend who appeared out of nowhere with questions. The brunette never went to the palace, or there is some reason why he didn't do it. Unfortunately, it's difficult to understand the truth. The man said that the girl could die, and the therapist says that everything will be fine, and that she should calm down. Kandil comes out of the room. It is unclear why Lasteren is trying to interfere in the affairs of another family, and behaves like this. The blonde only learned the truth because of rumors that had started to spread recently. There was an ad recently about a tutor being sought and that everything was stopped because of a woman with her illness. The boy calmly asks if his friend is okay, but he has already been told not to stick his nose into someone else's family. Elaine hasn't fully recovered yet. There's simply no time for talking. It would be a waste. The priest will be returning back. You will have to use the portal to move faster. In a second, a transition appeared. In fact, it takes away some of the energy, and the way the young man behaves is amazing. Eltalark stands in surprise, probably only because of his classmate's abilities. Changing the subject, the hero asks to say hello to the lady, and asks to convey that a friend will soon come to visit. Kahendel is an old friend for the young man, but still Elaine is also one of those who is more important than all the others. Realizing that he is doing the right thing, the wizard forbids the use of portals, but this is not a problem. The hero will be able to reach the mountain in 3 days. The family is in big trouble next time. We should act more thoughtfully. A woman will try, but if a person is dear to her, the girl will still try until the last second. Jackton hasn't forgotten what his mistress is like, but that's her problem. She can't stop. A report came in that monsters had multiplied in the cave on Mount Shasrius. There were too many of them there. The monster Bereku, who turns into a spider from the report, the man realized that they had found the queen. Trained creatures like these emerge from hibernation in the spring, so they should be monitored. But this has never happened in the middle of summer. The mistress's strength has not yet fully recovered. She asks to prepare for her at least 3 more people that she can use. The trip to find Shuriate's refuge also bore fruit. The young man only understood that they were connected with the demon. Mr. Kahendel said he would help, so there was no need to worry. They would try to find out more details together. The young man had changed a lot lately. Perhaps everyone had the wrong idea about him. A few more days passed, during which time the lady's temperature still had not completely subsided, and she had not gotten better. According to the priest, the baby is sleeping the sleep she couldn't get because of the pain in the past weeks. Elaine needs to get well soon. Even the servants are praying for her. The chef even refuses to eat. The boy's mother spent all her strength and exhausted herself in order to save her daughter-in-law. The medicine that the beauty took contained something that Priest Mohan had overlooked. The ingredients may seem like nothing special, but it's a clever trick to hide the important stuff from prying eyes. Many people sent gifts to Elaine. She will be happy to receive flowers when she wakes up. In Balady's hands, in addition to the bouquets, is a box sent by Duke Lasteran, or rather his heir. Cahendel thinks the item would look better on his fireplace, but the maid refuses to hand over the gift. The conversation is interrupted by the blonde, who again began to toss and turn, trying to say something while unconscious. The lady not only fell asleep, she began to have febrile convulsions, showing that she was not well. Picking up the baby in his arms, the man is about to leave. He will be back very soon. For some reason, there is a goose in front of the beauty who is looking at her attentively. The lady always thought that the animal had a strange smell that no one else had. It was difficult to understand the truth before, but now it has become clear that the goose smells of gold. We managed to find out what was happening after some time in the palace. Before that, there was no opportunity to touch the money, but now everything has become clear. The girl assumes that she had been sick for quite a long time because she remembers how everyone asked her to wake up and get up. If she is destined to die this way, she wants to meet her father and be close. On the one hand, what was happening was offensive. The little girl thought that everything was starting to get better. She was happier than ever. It's too late to think about anything. The goose increases in size, becoming a huge, glowing figure. The animal seems to be inviting her to sit on its back, so the little girl, of course, does not refuse. A fire starts below, and the house is slowly engulfed by huge tongues of flame. The girl wanted a miracle, but it didn't happen. The reason she is alive is because she turned out to be stronger than the devil. If help was given, the sincerity touched someone's soul, helping them cope with the consequences. Now that it was all over, the spirit would no longer torment the poor child's body, leaving her alone. The young lady will return to the people who love and care for her, and it seems she is beginning to come to her senses. The man took his wife to the highest point of the mountain peak in Chasrias to cool off. Elaine woke up, and that's the most important thing. It seems her temperature even dropped a little, allowing her to breathe freely. It is natural to think and worry about your family, but it is better to take care of your own well-being. The hero was worried, thinking that he would never again see the look of blue eyes or hear a gentle voice. The beauty jumps to the ground and smiling assures that she is no longer sick. All this seems more like something unreal. The goose the girl met in her dream said that everything would be okay now that the devil had finally retreated. One of the animals was always the most beautiful and white on the farm, and this is how he became special. Elaine's dreams are where the great demon's influence is most clearly displayed. It is unlikely that the goose acted rashly, and since he appeared he had a reason for it, something like wings descended from the sky. The view is wonderful, one that one would like to enjoy on a permanent basis without taking one's eyes off it. Before finishing the story, the blonde wants to do something nice, so he promises to do whatever the woman wants. When Icon acts like this, he is misleading his girlfriend into thinking that he likes her. A familiar voice is heard from behind, which makes something inside turn over, and the little girl sees a witch who has arrived. The woman wordlessly rushes to hug, repeating how grateful she is that everything ended well. Jackton also came. The blonde created a strong magical explosion of power just to attract attention. The brunette can't help but say that they arrived on time because the gentleman's expression remains dissatisfied. It was a pity that he couldn't tell his wife more, but since the servant had come, they would go to the Shuriate sect. The guy asks to go another day. He worked all day and was mentally tired while he was comforting the hostess. The secretary knows that there is no point in protesting. It seems that the great devil is even more involved in this matter than it seemed. Now we have to destroy the pagan haven and make sure that the family curse lifts when everything is over. Elaine will receive recognition. Eltalark received a letter from a friend. The girl's health is recovering, and this cannot but please. Fortunately, the lady is well taken care of at the palace, so she will be completely healthy very soon. The young man doesn't know how to react because he's afraid that the lady will change her mind about getting a divorce, and his hands are again overcome by cramps. The condition gradually worsens, reaching the head. The man really wants to see the girl as soon as possible. The gentleman was about to go to the castle, but the servant stopped him. As it turned out, his father wanted to meet. From the very beginning, the Duke began to press Eltelarch, asking when he would quit his job as a professor and start building a business plan. The young man wanted to say something but noticed a body on the sofa. The man had been killed again, but there was a reason for everything. All people are just expendable material that can be safely used and disposed of if necessary. The boy's mother was also nothing more than an object for this family. She was locked up until she became pregnant. Eventually, the woman caught some illness and died, but the Duke again didn't care. The young man suddenly remembered his mother, and this did not escape the attention of his interlocutor. She died without seeing the world. The woman who was disposed of this afternoon was killed only for the sake of the Duke's son. The girl became pregnant and began to assert her rights, but Eltelarch must become the sole heir. Garbage belongs in a landfill, so everyone who entered the room was one who knew their fate sooner than they imagined. With 2 weeks left until the princess's birthday celebration, a great opportunity to show off the capabilities of the Lastaran family has finally arrived. On the day of the final inspection, the man is required to arrive at the celebration site to put pressure on others. Baletti handed over a new invitation from Duenalas. The girl did not understand how someone like her could receive the letter. The woman personally sent the invitation, as did the sorceress and her son, who refused to go. Tanya sincerely wanted the girl to attend her event and brighten up the guests with her presence. The beauty's handwriting is excellent, and they say that life's handwriting is even softer and more wonderful. If Coronea accepts the invitation, it will be almost a debut in high society. The princess wants to make friends in order to improve relations between the imperial family and the clan of the great sorceress. Friendliness is not a bad thing, but something is definitely wrong in this situation. Never before has a woman behaved this way. Either Duenalas is lonely or she wants something without admitting what it is. It is unlikely that loneliness has anything to do with it. The blonde is almost always surrounded by friends of various ranks. Not a single thought came to mind about what the future Empress needed from a commoner. Although the lady is Coronea's daughter-in-law, she has no power in the family. Madame and Kehendel are not going to go. It would be worthwhile to do as they do, but the woman is serious. You'll have to go alone in any case, because there won't be anyone you know there. If you avoid the crown princess, you won't be able to find out what's on her mind. It's time to meet her face to face. People should know that Coronea's doors are always open. They should know that they cannot judge the sorceress badly. Surely Kinesis will be able to be protected if everything is decided. It is worth hurrying to prepare. Since Madame's family has renounced its official status, the baby is no different from ordinary people. There will be sidelong glances at the ball because usually either a person is a wizard or he has talents. All that remains is to hope for luck. Baletti appeared in the room again, having completely forgotten about the package from Lord Eltelarch. Inside the box there is a wonderful brooch. It perfectly matches the image chosen for the event. It would never seem logical to be friends with such a person, but it is the right move. The man behaves appropriately, making the little girl smile constantly. She is obliged to write a letter. The beauty intends to answer first Her Majesty and then her friend. Everything is decided when it becomes known that Aratia is on friendly terms with Eltelarch. The nobility will not look down on her. In her head, the heroine asks for forgiveness. She knows that the gentleman wanted friendship not for the sake of benefit, but for the sake of time together. There are about 2 weeks left until the party. We need to have time to prepare. The first thing you will have to do is go and choose a gift. You should probably buy something beautiful and expensive. You can't ask your mother for help. She went out early in the morning to fight the monsters. It would be even easier to ask the secretary than Kinesis, but he is also away on a mission with Iken. The girl still remembers her husband and those words on the mountain. She often thinks about what he wanted to say. Since there was no one else left, the woman went to meet the butler who could help, as the blonde knows her funds are limited, but she can use the family events fund. The beauty is going to use 500 gold, but it seems that the limit will be exceeded. It seems that this is not enough. Finding something worthwhile is an important matter that the name of Coronea depends on, especially when the royal family is here. In order for the girl to understand, she needs to be shown all the numbers for clarity so that she can understand what is what. A total of 10,000 gold pieces have been allocated, but if this is not enough, you can always ask the madam for an increase in the amount. It is important to highlight the family's wealth, but it is better to spend wisely. A birthday happens more than once in a lifetime, so 500 coins will be enough. Still deciding to increase the budget at least a little, the heroine offers 3,000. The Azkal Trading Group is the most influential group in the empire, dealing with the sale of goods within the country. The people there understand the needs of the clients who come to them well. Surely they will also help with choosing something worthwhile for Duanalis, so the lady will remain calm. At the door you immediately meet the eyes of Azkal, who smiles pleasantly. The man was surprised to meet Aratia. She was a little different from what he had heard. It seems that the girl wants to buy a gift for the princess, but she doesn't know what to choose. Just by looking at the blonde, you can tell that she knows nothing about high society. It's time to do business. There are 2 weeks left until the ball, so the hero has no more suitable things left. A merchant must take advantage of a crisis, and a person like a leader must not miss out on his advantage. Since there is nothing left from now on, the Kurenea family will work with others. Nobody expected this, so when the lady is about to leave, the old man hesitates to stop her. The remaining item was a spare, but Elaine would likely like it. Of course, such news is good. It is a great honor for the girl that she will be able to observe the pickiness. It's no wonder that Mantle lost her source of income after meeting this child. Smiling, the little girl promises that she will pay for travel and storage costs, as well as everything else that is needed. Hearing the conditions, the man immediately lights up. Maybe this girl is not so bad. In this case, a special storage will be specially opened. The lady probably also needs accessories. If the beauty needs it, she can get the stones at a good price. The brunette sees a strange expression on the street and apologizes since this is the first event. After the wedding, the girl will be wearing wedding jewelry. Knowing the Kurenea family no pendant for sale can compare to their selection, the lady falls onto the sofa in despair. She has no idea what to do, considering that she doesn't even have a wedding ring. If you don't bring a few pieces of jewelry with you, many aristocrats will have questions. The accessories that Madame gave could have saved the situation. Despite the cunning, all this will be a lie. Even if the marriage is a sham, I would like to wear the ring given to me by Icon.